sign ordinance. And this is recommendation.
That's not when I was 16.
Don't go one way, because go the other way.
Yeah, still drove in this region, but not so much up here. Yeah, it was super weird.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Okay, that right there, we already got this after we put the package out. And it's just another one.
Okay.
This is from our.
I was just saying, I just remember spending about 4 years on designer board writing that sign ordinance.
Yeah, it's a booger, you know.
It is, it always has been. And the kicker is, when you come back with this one, you gotta sell it. Because we had a rough time selling the first one.
Right. Oh, yes, it was very intense. It was very hard to understand.
Good. Good to see you.
I think that's why the last.
I have a question for you. Some months ago, we addressed some public comments regarding a stop sign at Mexico and Petersburg, right outside the elementary school. And it's where people are coming out of the elementary school, and Mexico is a through street there. The stop signs aren't on Mexico, they're on Petersburg. And so, again, I was approached by a citizen today about, do you guys do anything about that? I said,
The
that's
police is supposed to do,
Petersburg.
normally they do a study.
Yeah.
They sit and see how many people come through there. When I first came here, that's how they did it on the street.
It's a lot of people.
Well, that way they can determine, and then
It's one of the highest traffic spots in the 3 o'clock in the afternoon, 8 o'clock in the morning. Well, there's two, it's a two-way stop, and it probably should be a four-way stop.
Especially in
Right
the
there
morning
at
and
the
the afternoon for the drop off and pick up.
Yeah, that way you'd alternate traffic, because when there's a solid flow of
Now,
cars
is it one
going through
way?
there.
I thought it was a one way.
It is a one-way.
Petersburg's one way coming out of the school.
Right.
And if you're coming out of the school, Mexico's busy,
Yeah.
and there are other people dropping off.
So it's really kind of a three-way in
Because the traffic drops
Well, yeah,
around.
it's a three-way, yeah, because one way does, well,
Right.
there's traffic coming in from 4 directions.
Okay.
So it would be a
Well,
four-way
and
stop.
what we would do on that, if they look at it, then we would come back because it would be done.
Yeah.
I didn't know if that was an administrative decision.
About 7:15.
Okay.
And you'll see it's constant.
Yeah, I mean, all the people there, yeah,
I'll do that tomorrow morning. I'll
Okay.
get John and
Well, thank you.
out there, and then we'll get it, and then yeah, you know, what meeting when we have the December 12th, we can for 10.
I mean, well, Mrs. Green, who lives right there in the corner, caught me today.
Okay. Take care.
Yeah, thank you.
It's nice to go through.
Good. You didn't do it?
And she's trying to that way we'll start to you. And I have
Yes, sir.
But yeah, that'll work.
just say that.
Good afternoon, whatever it is.
It's a little later than that, but I understand.
Boy, the day's been this.
Yeah, it's been a Monday, that's for sure. It's still Monday in my mind.
Ended up taking the day off.
I can't believe this is back. Pretty much in the same condition it was when it left. Well, the tree ordinance,
Yeah, I thought it was supposed to go by.
well, it did, they're bringing it back relatively intact. They've taken
We'll be back with us.
a couple issues yet.
So we'll say around December 2nd.
Anytime, 5 o'clock on the first side.
All right, so let's do it just December 2nd, 10 o'clock.
Bring it back on the wall.
I'll be in
We are looking at a new development.
And what did I just say?
Maybe.
December
okay to have it, but I'm just not sure this is the one I want to have.
December 2nd, 10.
I am.
You made it. Oh, look at that.
I know, I'm kind of.
Oh, don't ruin my snowflake.
I didn't, I made sure all the bulbs were on, so they're very nice and thick. We turned it around.
Oh, okay, it was the wrong way. I couldn't even tell.
And I said, my finger book. I said, they went circle, circle, circle. Did you get a new one for this meeting or just?
No, I just saw that it, actually, when you go to the date for this meeting, it takes you back to the other one, so.
Yeah.
They couldn't change the agenda, it was because it was rescheduled. The agenda has to stay the same.
Maybe I won't use this. Maybe I just won't use it.
Yeah.
Still spinning.
And the thing is, I was like, I want to do it. We're just doing this thing. In here, nobody's in here, there's no folks hanging, so. Perfect. 0% chance. The back room.
We don't have an internet connection or something.
There's a green.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Okay. What's this? What happened? Where'd I go? Or not. Backup information.
Is there a different standard for you as opposed to everybody else?
I noticed that myself.
So if you need me to, so be it.
Supporting documents. Somebody else doesn't might be here. Somebody else doesn't
That's more likely, Steve. Depends on who gets called. I'll get this thing turned up here.
Well, you got Bluetooth control?
Phone rings in there. That's good and bad.
I was gonna say your wife can get a hold of you now.
I turned down here and it's off. There's a button for that. What there is, they just pull them up.
That's it, don't let me get a hold of you, right?
Yeah, one of the others in your pocket.
There were some guys that worked for telephone network, I think they were down there. They were putting GPS, they just started putting GPS in their trucks so they keep track of them. This one guy said, if you don't know how to fly, take a fuse out of the line. Pringles.
Yeah, that's what I just told him.
Mounting and metal?
That's what, the last time I uploaded, they did that. And I was with my
Yeah.
we always did a 5 o'clock meeting.
Oh, yeah.
Come and use it.
Oh, yeah. And the airports, they come with, and on, they come, they on there, and orange.
Yeah, see, you guys.
Blue. But, oh, no.
I don't know if I was gonna make it.
The navy.
My lady had Canada.
They go right in. Here's how I'm doing it today.
Yeah. They try to reset.
Just do it quick, just do it quick.
And you made it?
Well, actually, we just one of their 8 minutes, just go over and we got there, they took her right in. Good. Actually, we were out of there before.
Good. That doesn't happen all the
If it had been a
time.
regular time, if it had been 3 o'clock,
They'll still be there. Yeah.
If we could get Councilman Sherhart to stop talking, maybe we could start.
He's got 30 seconds.
Hello?
No.
how long is it till you run again?
Sitting back there just yelling at everybody.
How long is it till you run again?
So who's going to give? Good to see you. Who's gonna,
Significant population of us.
what's your carry again? Invocation?
Oh, certainly.
Because I think Pastor Knipper thought we started at 6.
I see.
Which, by the way, that for Pacific
Is there my timer? What time is it?
Didn't think we could get through it in time.
See? We're rushing it. Yeah, why are we starting at 5?
What's that now?
It said Don something.
What?
All right, this city council meeting will be called to order at 5 o'clock. Everyone's here? Todd, Little, but you're here, right? I'm kidding. We're all here. Let us stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible. Please remain standing for the invocation. Councilman Carey, do you mind?
If you
Thank
would pray with me. Dear God, we thank you for today. We thank you for this city, this state, and this country. We thank you, Lord, for the members of our community who are involved and dedicated and contributing to the betterment of this city. And we pray, Lord, that you would help us all to be responsive to your guidance and do the best we can in every way that we are able. Please watch over us tonight. Get us all home safely. These things we pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
All right, citizen comments. Do we have any citizens that wish to speak? No one? All right. Item number 6, the consent agenda. We have minutes from our regular meeting, our special meeting, and the Airport Advisory Board.
I'm sorry, there was one email that was supposed to be
Oh,
read during the citizens' comments. Pardon? The one I just, this one.
Who wants this read?
Yes, sir.
Oh.
I had a call on this email from the former mayor, and he sent it over for
Oh, yeah, we can have these right here instead of comment. You want them?
Thought I was
down here?
surprised.
He had said either you, or, yeah, because you're his
You
rep.
want me to read them, or you want to read
Well,
them?
I might be embarrassed.
I'll read them.
You're his representative.
Okay. This is the email from Mr. Robert Lee, who resides at 1314 Gentile Street, Castroville, Texas. He asked that we read these comments during citizens' comments. Comments on several agenda items. Utility bill dates. This issue has been looked at several times before. Yes, we all understand people have financial challenges from time to time. Changing the due date doesn't change anything. It still requires the customer to pay their bill during the month. It may mean they must set that money aside until the payment is due, but that is not our responsibility. The city has historically assisted some customers with stretching out their payments or referring them to a few organizations that may be able to assist them. During my tenure as mayor, council found out that the city had over $100,000 in outstanding utility payments that went back years. There were quite a few customers that received cutoff notices month after month. Some of those were actually disconnected and after required payments reconnected. Just like other fees the city collects, those customers were required to pay those reconnect fees. The law has some guidelines on conditions where you cannot disconnect utilities, and we complied with those, such as in extreme cold. I recommend you get all the facts and figures before you change the policy. The second subject, garage sale permits. Castroville does not need to regulate occasional garage sales with more permit requirements. Most people will not comply, and we would have a lot of trouble enforcing it. The complaints I read were mostly blocked driveways, banded signs, and nip and tuck not getting money from every person that had a sale. It would be a mistake to pass an ordinance that's purpose was to help some worthy cause. People that register also get the benefit of having their location on a map. Non-participants do not. Banded signs are not really a problem here, and everyone I have ever seen has the phone number, address, or directions to the responsible party. It might take all of 30 seconds to remove one. Personally, I have no issue with short-term banded signs for personal or civic events within the city or to look for a runaway pet. Blocked driveways are infrequent and would generally be most likely at citywide garage sales 2 times a year, old-fashioned Christmas 1 time a year, St. Louis Days 1 time a year. So that's about 5 days a year. Hardly a crisis for an occasional problem that resolves itself in fairly quickly. I recommend you do not try to require permits for garage sales. His third topic, tree ordinance. I ask where are the facts that show citizens of Castroville are removing valuable large trees? They aren't. It's the tree owners. If the tree owners felt they needed to remove a tree for their benefit, why should we interfere? It isn't the city's tree. And to put a permit and a fee requirement on a property owner is just more government telling people what to do and charging them for it. Developers are moving into this area. The vast majority of the land they will be building on is farmland or filled with brush, mesquite, or other small common local trees. An ordinance is not needed for them. That's the end of the email, the end of Mr. Lee's comments.
Thank you. Okay. So we'll go to the consent agenda. Any discussion, thoughts, motion?
Not for me. Move we approve the consent agenda.
All in favor?
Need a second?
I'll second.
I'll second.
Got a second from Councilman Dyer?
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right. Thanks. Now, we're going to swear in somebody. I think it's Police Chief Jackson. So, oh, there's Pastor.
I've got an email here, I'm sorry, Deborah, from you. It says, "Good morning, I checked you are it for tomorrow at 6 PM."
And I apologize.
I thought, well, maybe I got moved ahead to a different time zone or something. So I apologize too for my tardiness tonight.
Well, I told him, I said, I believe, in the middle of this, I said, I don't think he knows it's at 5. And apparently I forgot.
Well, I'm here, that's the point.
Well, let's have another prayer, because I think I need it. Let me stand up again. Deborah certainly does,
Are
because she
are we
gave it the
okay
wrong
with that?
time.
Let's all stand and hold
mind?
our hands, bow our heads in prayer.
Don't have to pray twice. No.
I guess so. I've just been asked to, so. Gracious Lord, we just thank you for this time to come together this evening, and thank you for all the blessings that you have brought to this community over the years. And we just ask you to bless this meeting this evening. Be with all the council members, the mayor this evening, for everybody's here, and just let everything be done for first of all, to your glory, and second of all, for the benefit of all the citizens of this community. And we pray this in Jesus' name. And all God's people say, amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Pastor.
Times 2. Very good. Thank you, Pastor. Okay.
All right, now we're going to 7, swearing in ceremony of Police Chief Brian Jackson.
It looks official.
Can you get his picture?
She can stand up if she has to.
Repeat after me. I, Brian E. Jackson,
I, Brian Jackson,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully execute the duties
that I will faithfully execute the duties
of the police chief
of the police chief
of the city of Castroville
of the city of Castroville
of the state of Texas,
of the state of Texas,
and will, to the best of my ability,
and will to the best of my ability
preserve,
preserve,
protect,
protect,
and defend the Constitution
and defend the Constitution
and laws of the United States
and laws of the United States
and of this state,
and of this state,
so help me
so
God.
help me God.
Thank you. Congratulations.
You only gonna bleed a little. That way you can get that.
What, does he get another store? Sure got a fancy tool there. Oh.
It's all right.
That's right. It won't show on the black uniform. You're okay.
That thing's interchangeable, I guess.
It looked almost Catholic.
That's what I wrote. All right, thank you very much. We're pleased to have you.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
And you have to wear that uniform all the time now. It looks so cool, really. All right.
The badge is pretty big.
All right. This is what's cool. We like it. Thank you, Pastor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So now, our police chief is up because he wants us to buy something for him. Yeah.
That's how it works, isn't it?
They call this the
Agenda
honeymoon
item
period.
8, discussion and appropriate action on approval of purchasing 2 vehicles for the police department, and I understand this was already budgeted, so.
Yes, ma'am.
Chief,
I'm
speak.
I'm requesting the purchase of 2 2020 Tahoes to replace 2 vehicles that we gave to Public Works this year. One was Chief Lean's old vehicle and the animal control vehicle. We actually purchased one of the new animal control vehicle with one of the PD Tahoe slots this year, just to make sure he had something decent to drive. We were putting too much money into it. So it's through Caldwell Country, the same place we bought the last Tahoe. It's by board, yes, sir. For approximately $73,000 for the 2 vehicles.
Any questions? Councilwoman Martinez? No. Councilman Carey?
None?
Byers?
I would implore you, Chief, to make sure you do what we've talked about, keeping up with when one's going bad. I've had seen too many times when we've gone through the budget where the chief requests a car and we say, no, fight for it, you fight for it, and I will fight for you. Keep those cars up to date to keep our guys in some safe vehicles.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
No questions. I'd just like to get an affirmation that the amount of money you're spending is within the amount of money we budgeted.
Yes, sir, it is.
Okay.
I make a motion that we approve the purchase of 2 replacement vehicles approved in the 2020 budget.
Second.
Second by Councilman Carey. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? There you go.
Thank you.
This is because you're wearing that uniform. You're looking for it or something. All right.
I'll leave you in the capable hands of Officer Pringles here.
All right. Boy, that's going to clear some out. Wow, that's going to clear a few out. Wow. That's her? From the elderly lady? That's his mom?
That's his mother-in-law.
Mother-in-law?
All right, let's go to agenda item 9.
Okay.
And this one, as all that I present are from citizens. Where is it? 9. Recommend, this is about citywide holiday decorations, and you can see our snowflake with blue lights. That's what's on our lighting poles. They are 6 to 8 years old and were a grant that Ms. Chantel received. Okay. Many citizens have voiced their disappointment in the lack and nature of city holiday decorations. This administration would like to enhance the beauty of our town through collaboration with citizens, area entities, and area businesses through updating citywide holiday decorations. Both Lacoste and Hondo invite citizen businesses, entities, participation in celebrating the holidays with attractive on-site greeting cards. Castroville does not. Castroville would enhance tourism, goodwill, and camaraderie if this practice were implemented. The Garden Club has disbanded, and many are unaware as to what decorations the Garden Club put up. This administration would like to ensure that the Garden Club tradition continues. And council has information as to the decorations, and I'll read what citizens sent. The only thing that the city has are the snowflakes that hang on the street light poles along 90. If they're still functional, they're old, probably 8 to 9 years at least, and they're not visible when hung. Also, they are not a good visual presence of what anyone would want for the city. A few individuals hang their own lights and just put them up when they want. Lights around the trees in September Square, along Fiorella, in front of the Castroville Cafe and Houston Square, were purchased with funds donated to a group that worked with Tim Kelly for the Johnny Rodriguez concert. Tim personally paid a large percentage of the cost of the 6,600 feet of lighting. Trimming the trees to allow the wrapping to occur, paid for the cost to wrap trees, and there were volunteers. And we're thinking, the person said the lights are probably stored in the back of Dan's Meat Market. We also worked with ComZoom, who provided employee and bucket truck to hang and remove them. Chamber of Commerce, CAEDC, Jared Schroeder, and some of Mayor Kelly's employees and citizens were also involved. The city did the lights on City Hall. And I don't know because I wasn't here, but does anyone know, do we have those lights? We kept the, Mayor Kelly?
No, that's not, they were not our lights.
Okay, so he has them.
As far as I know.
So
they
those
were
lights were
his
not donated,
Is
okay.
that correct?
The only Santa Claus, we have a Santa Claus with the old-fashioned Christmas, and I know there's one also with the airport. As far as the cards that people have commented on that they see in Lacoste and Castroville, I'm not sure what we would need if we were to do them, but those were some of the comments. Landmark Inn is going to decorate in period fashion, which will be minimal. During the Conservation Society's Candlelight Tour of Homes, they're going to have a historic version of Santa, cool, with whom pictures can be taken. Chamber has wreaths, bows, and garland to go on the bridge, which was what I guess the Garden Club did. And the Christmas tree that Castroville State Bank hooks up for us in Houston Square. Priscilla Garrett put the decor on the bridge. Santa comes at Old Fashioned Christmas on Friday and Saturday. I have no clue about our City Hall lights, decorations.
Well, the Public Works Department puts up the lights and the decorations. We are going to spruce up the wreaths that we put on the front. We as employees put up the tree.
Is it outside, inside?
What's that, the tree?
The tree.
No, it'll be in the
It's in here.
yes, in the front office. This year, I think we're going to look at also having doors decorated. So, as far as a Christmas card, we do coordinate with the schools. And Angela from the library is contacting the schools, I think the grade schools, and see if they will put together a little contest for us. And then there's a card chosen and presented here at council, and then, we recognize the person that makes up the card.
And then that would be the city card to send?
For that year, yes.
Okay. All right, so that's the information on the decorations. It's just for discussion. But people have complained about the snowflake because it's not visible and the blue lights. So I don't know if we can change lights or whatever, but whatever, if you guys want to think about it and talk about it, or it's up to y'all. And we do have funds, don't we?
Well, one thing that I didn't let y'all know is
CPS.
and I want to give John and Brenna kudos for this. They actually contacted CPS, and CPS, we found out today, are going to donate $2,500 for us to purchase lights here at the city. So that's really great news. So we'll definitely use that and make do with that. So as far as money that was budgeted, we certainly can look at either at the city council, but like the special activities budget. But we didn't personally put money strictly for Christmas lights in the budget. No, there's no separate line item for that, but we can pull it if we need to. So, but hopefully with the $2,500, that's definitely going to help, from CPS. So
Yes, and they were very nice to do that. I imagine these can probably, it's a base, so I imagine we could expand on the base if you guys want to look at it. But I can't see any discussion now, but let's discuss anyway, and you guys give me your thoughts. Start with Councilman Dyer.
I've got a couple of questions. Is there any ordinance or policy that has been written down that talks about holiday decoration?
not that I'm aware of. No.
I think that's our first problem.
You don't have one? No.
I think this is another issue where we really need to have a written policy. Does this belong under the sign ordinance, or is this, it's not a sign, is it?
No.
So we just need to create a city policy on on decorations for any time of the year. We need to have a process, and I believe, we should try to leverage citizen volunteers. If we can set up the appropriate time. We're so late now this year, it's going to be really hard to do, but I think it's something we can fix. If we write a policy that specifies the timeline and we set up citizens committees at the appropriate time, the city council could then allocate money, put it in the budget, make it a budget item, and we could do better, I think. And I would be in favor of that.
Okay. Councilman Chihut.
Besides the snowflakes on the post, don't we hang something from up top? Or am I dreaming?
That's
Oh.
it. We used to have
Thought that was garland.
angels and all that kind of stuff, but they're at the very top upstairs and they're all, I look for
So
them
it sounds like
today.
we need to invest in some new stuff, huh?
I don't know if we'd really need, well, again, that's, people can look at it. It's a pretty sturdy base. I can't understand why we can't just attach something to it, but that's a discussion.
John, your department has always hung that stuff that you know of?
Yes, I know, they've always hung it up.
We have to have
There's
a
only
truck.
some outlets at the very top of the poles and nothing at the bottom or on the bridge. X-Dot will have to approve.
Oh, the bridge doesn't have any?
No, outlets.
That's why
No
they always
outlets
put-
either end?
Only at the top.
Oh, okay. And then if you get off the bridge, you got outlets at the bottom as well?
No.
Just
Oh,
at the top.
Just at the top.
just at the top. So you're limited on what you can do. Double plug? Do you know?
No, I don't know.
Oh,
You can check on that.
I'm just
Okay.
curious. And didn't the city sponsor some kind of deal for residences I mean, they go crazy in my neighborhood on Christmas.
Years ago, when I first came here, they
Yeah.
used to have, my understanding, they had a best yard or best decoration.
Yeah.
And they provided a committee, and I was here in '07 and they had stopped it, maybe the year
Oh.
before.
When was it?
In '07, when I came here, they said that they had had it previously, and they'd have a committee go around and judge the different houses, and I believe they was recognized, had an award, but that has not been since I've been here. But that might be something y'all look at trying to,
That ain't slowing down in my neighborhood.
well, that's good. They
Yeah.
have-
Oh, ours too.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
wild.
they go crazy.
But that may be something you look at, that we start the committee back up.
Yeah.
And they had people come from other, I think, towns. I mean, they didn't have it necessarily locally to where they could judge them all.
Cool. Councilman Byers.
I think we ought to have decoration. However, this agenda, I can't even see how it should be on here, because one thing it says we don't have any idea how much it's going to cost, and we do appreciate the donation from CPS.
No.
But we don't, I think it's mine. I can't go along with something, I don't know how much it's going to cost. There's no backup on anything of this agenda. When I got it till I get here, by your standards, this shouldn't even be on the agenda, because there's no backup, there's no documentation. Unless there's a standard for you and a standard for everybody else, this shouldn't even be on the agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Byers.
You're
I'm
welcome.
very sorry that my packet that
Well,
was
you
in
want
time-
us to have documentation.
Yes, sir.
Everything has to be to your standard, but it's not to your standard when we do it.
Well,
So
I
obviously, we have a double standard.
Yes, sir. But in this one, I didn't have the information. That's why I brought it up.
And it should have been put on. That's what you told us.
Sir, I can't ask council members because then I'm violating the Open Meetings Act.
That's what you tell us. If we don't have documentation and backup, it doesn't get on here.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilman Carey.
I'd like to see us engage the Chamber of Commerce in this discussion that we are going to have, obviously, about next year, because I don't think we have time to do anything about it this year. But I think the Chamber would be very glad to have license to do some adorning around the city.
Sounds good. Councilman Martinez.
And I agree with Councilman Carey regarding the Chamber of Commerce, because they could also possibly have the land for putting up like the big cards that they put out in Hondo and out in Lidl and everything from the different businesses, because that has to be put someplace, and I'm sure it's gonna have to meet our sign ordinance if there's, because it's gonna be a big sign right out on the side of 90 and everything for everybody to see. And what property is that gonna be put on? So it's just things that we gotta consider for next year, but this gives us a year to get it written right, done right, and not rush at last minute to get the stuff done.
Who is in charge of these? Like, who's in charge of decorations and stuff like that? Is it
No one.
parks or nobody?
I mean, we just put up
It
all
may
the
just be
stuff.
just working together with them, between Public Works and city admin here.
So,
We'll get it.
You're suggesting we'll get Chamber to work with,
With the city, yeah, because they're the ones that work with the businesses hand in hand. They're gonna get the businesses buy-in of whether or not they wanna participate and see what they would like to do as a recommendation for decorating since they're on 90.
Arnie, I hate to interrupt you, but do you have any comments? Because I know you've been doing this for a while with CAEDC.
I think the only thing that on the Highway 90 goes back to the law that, been brought up before. The
Signage.
city has a sign code ordinance, which it does. Signs or other things can be put up along the highway, but they have to be on private property, not in the highway right of way. Well, in most of town, the highway right of way ends about 2 feet in, outside of the curb of Highway 90, so you don't have any space to put things.
Oh,
That's
10
an
feet.
issue.
that's why.
I don't know, TxDOT doesn't give permission and anything I was aware of, you have to go back to Austin to their attorney to deal with them, like we're doing on the welcome to Castroville sign. Other than that, economic development has never done anything particular about Christmas. It's always the chamber or the city putting the things on the building here. And the reason lights that were mentioned about Tim Kelly and all that stuff weren't put on the city hall is the roof that just been replaced, and they didn't want anybody up there other than city employees.
Nice.
So the lights were on, and yes, all that stuff is still in the back end of Dan's Meat Market. And I know I bought all those lights, the 6,600 feet,
You-
like
Oh, wow.
$3,900 and some dollars, and we got them on sale
Wow.
at about $15 or $18 a strand, whether they were 60 or 100 feet. And then we reimbursed ourselves if we ended up with money out of.
Oh, so you guys
other
reimbursed.
funds. So at this point, the lights were not used last year just because nobody got around to doing it, and then when it looked at the expense of getting people to come without trees and all that kind of stuff.
So they could be used?
If Tim would allow it, he actually owns them.
There.
Oh, Tim
He
does.
stayed for it, so.
Okay. And Brianna, I was going to ask you just quickly, so there's nothing, we don't have any ordinances or anything?
Decorations, city decorations of any sorts. The closest thing is signs, but that doesn't really pertain to what we're talking about.
When I first came here, we did not have lights for the city hall.
Sorry?
When I first got here, we didn't have really any decorations for the city hall. They started decorating though because they had, at that time, a parade. That, it was a walking parade, and they stopped having it a few, well, probably 5-6 years ago. But they would have a parade for the old-fashioned Christmas, and they would come down through here, and then they would end up over there at Houston Square. So everybody down through here tried to put lights up and, make it decorated. And they still do. They still put them out.
I got a question.
Yes, sir.
John, are y'all planning on putting what we have up?
Yes,
Okay.
And when would that be?
when y'all say so.
It should be probably next week, I would assume,
Next
because
week?
the first old-fashioned Christmas, we always have everything up before they have that weekend.
I'd not highly suggest somebody see if they can get a hold of Tim if he owns the lights and see if he'll donate the use of them.
Yeah, we can do that.
That's a separate issue than the lights we own, right, for the
Right.
poles?
Right.
But I'm just saying that if they're sitting there not being used, just see if he'll let the city use them.
I guess in the interim, with that $2,500, I guess I need some
That's what-
feedback from you
yeah.
guys. I mean, do we want to go ahead and purchase lights now
Because the
for the city hall or
2,500,
for?
that's free money, if we don't use it.
But I understood she said it was for the bridge.
Well, at our initial discussion, we talked about the bridge, but we didn't know that we thought that there was electricity, but there's not. So when she drops the check off next week, we can certainly have that conversation with her to find out, are there any other, like any stipulations, which I don't think there are. They're just Christmas lights in general, so.
Okay.
I would say run with that.
Mayor, I'd say
Yeah,
go,
for sure.
Mayor, I'd say go ahead and have them go ahead and get some decorations and get them up. If we got that if we got the money there to use.
Could I have a, do I have a motion?
Mr. Carey has a question.
I'm sorry?
Mr. Carey has a question.
I'm sorry.
That's all right, I was just saying, I know somebody who has $6,000 worth of lights he might sell for $2,500, so.
Seriously?
What else are they doing? So,
Would you be in touch with Mr.
I
Kelly?
don't mind asking him or anything because they've just been stored in like the big plastic tubs since we took them down in the back of Dan's Meat Market. So, you know,
It's a shame. I mean, because we're.
maybe
I'd
2,000.
say offer him 1,000. Don't go to 2,500.
Okay.
How much
I'll
light
second
will
that.
2,500 get us? A lot.
I don't know.
A lot.
That's a lot
John,
of lights.
any
I don't
idea?
need, I have no clue. It sounds like a lot of lights, but
Well, I'm gonna one
not a lot.
I'm gonna ask, why don't we just see if he'll donate them? I'm gonna,
Yeah,
that 6,600 feet that we bought 2 years ago was about 34.50 or something.
Oh, okay, okay.
And that was from Lowe's, and it was the cheapest we could get out of any place. for-
Those are really pretty too. I remember them.
Really?
They're all LED lights. and so
Oh,
forth.
Okay.
so they ought to be in fairly decent
Yeah.
shape. Huh.
All they did, we took them down, the idea was,
Actually, take
they were measured so that, let's say there was whatever, 100 people could go on City Hall. When they were brought down, it was gonna be, keep them and mark them, so that City Hall, the next one may be the Bonnery, the next one may be the theater. So when you got ready to do the next time, you could just say, okay, they go out on this building, because they're all obviously oddball lights around different buildings.
Yeah.
Well, when they came down, the ComZoom people took most of them down, they just ended up getting in big bundles. And.
So they're gonna have to be
City
sorted,
Hall
right?
lights may be tied in with the lights that were wrapped around the trees in September Square.
Oh, my.
That's really pretty though. It's beautiful, have those lights.
But I'll ask you tomorrow.
I think it'd be worth an ask, just to see.
Okay,
Don't you agree?
I do. Deborah, there's no action on this. It's just a recommendation I had that we discussed. So do I want to vote, or
I mean, we
Can't
don't, the
vote
staff
without
knows
it.
the direction
So what
that
do
we
we-
wish to do.
do we decide we're going to do this, or?
Well, I mean, we're gonna just look into it. You don't have to make it.
If for some reason we can't purchase the ones from Mr. Kelly, then perhaps with the 2,500, we can go buy our own lights and they're ours to keep. And
Do I have to
I
bring that
think,
back?
I think I would use see if you can use those, and also get $2,500 more.
Sure.
More stuff, even if you get those. Yeah, the more lights, the better.
I agree.
All right, so we'd like you to
Sure.
purchase more if we need more, or see if we could use those from Mr. Kelly. And we will do with the current decorations. Can you change the light bulb and maybe make them white instead of blue? Because I think the blue maybe is kind of yucky. Devin, what do you say?
Well,
Where do we want what?
The lights.
Select locations in the city.
I have no idea. Now I'm asking, what do y'all think?
At this late stage, maybe we should just empower the city administrator to use his judgment, work with the city staff, and maybe we could authorize maybe an extra $1,000 out of the special projects money that's on city council, if he needs it, and let him go, because it's so late, we're not going to be able to organize anything else.
I like that idea.
I think,
I'd say you have a consensus on that, Mayor.
all right, we've got a consensus, it's all yours.
We can't vote, but you can take a consensus.
well, we might want to go ahead and make a motion then.
No, I don't think we can. It doesn't say that
It
to,
says possible action,
Oh, I did?
where does it say that?
discussion of possible action.
How about I make a motion, we authorize the city administrator to use his judgment to work with city staff, and if he needs up to $1,000, not to exceed $1,000 out of the special project fund.
Okay,
I second it.
and we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so the next one is, what does it say on here? Discussion on utility payment due dates, and again, this is only discussion, and it's not the due dates. It is, I have confidential information from citizens that I could share if you want. It's people who are on pensions and disability, and I can't remember what the other one was. I can't remember. But their Social Security doesn't come at the right time, and then they get another one that comes at a different time, and the due date doesn't, they end up paying a late fee. So it wasn't changing any due dates. I think Mr. Lee, it was probably ambiguous, obviously, the way it was written, but just discussion. They weren't asking to change anything, but these particular people, which again is confidential and I could share with the council, end up paying a late fee every single month because they don't get their Social Security in time, because they cannot, they don't know what their utility bill is going to be, like I don't. So what they were asking, just some sort of discussion or thoughts or options, and I did look it up, and I didn't put it in here, but I did look it up. Oh, it's not in here. I did have legislation. I didn't give it to you?
No, ma'am.
Oh. There is legislation, different cities that do have special policies for people on Social Security, pensions, stuff like that. So anyway, I'm just putting it out there, and these people have, I promise you, they pay $50 every month. When we have other people that don't pay, but they pay $50, and they're always going to be late because their payments are at the beginning of the year. Is it the beginning?
Well, the $50 is for the disconnection note, the fee. If they get disconnected, it's a $50 reconnect fee. Just to let you know, our bills go out on the 10th of every month.
So the
and then
10th?
of every month, and then they're due on the 25th of that same month.
Yes.
What they're paying is, so this example for, just say it was November 25th, that they're due, they're actually paying part of the last week in September into October that they're paying in November. And so they pay in arrears. And so they go out on the 10th, they're doing the 25th. So they got 10 days to pay their bill after the 25th before they get disconnected. If they get disconnected, then there's a $50 charge.
That's what they were
reconnection
talking
fee. But if they pay within the 10 days after the 25th, it's a 10% late fee off of the original balance. So they pay a late fee, but they don't get disconnected. But if it's after the 10th day, they will get disconnected.
So how much is the late fee?
It's 10% of the original bill.
Okay.
And they already get, the over 65, they get a 5% discount off the electricity.
So they do, those that get disconnected, which they do because Patricia had the list, have to pay $50 to get reconnected.
How many of them? How many
The
are we talking?
ones I know of are 8.
Eight customers?
And they're just elderly, disabled, on Social Security and pensions.
And we have about close to, just say 1,700 to 1,800 accounts that we have every month that we bill, and about 300 or so are usually delinquent that we're having to try and collect. And then, of course, if they don't come in and ask for a payment arrangement, we'll definitely try and work with them, but if not, they're going to keep getting further behind, and then by the time you know it, they can't pay their bill. And so,
Because we do work with the ones that absolutely don't have the money,
correct,
period.
yes.
And they do have that Southwest something.
I know Hondo has a program that they help citizens pay for part of their utility, the electric bill, but
Community Council helps them.
that's, yeah.
The council? Community Council. Oh, Community Council.
We do try and help them if they come in. Now, they have to come in, they can't just assume that we're going to give them an extension, but we'll definitely work with them. And so, and if for some reason they get their pension payment on the 3rd, they technically still have until probably the 5th, because it's 10 days after the 25th to make that payment. They won't get disconnected, but they will get that 10% late fee assessed. And so, we can look at different ways. Right now they get that 5% discount.
A particular, I talked to one lady that, like I said, it's confidential, but she gets 1,200 Social Security, and that's all she gets. And does Social Security come at the beginning or the end of the
It
month?
varies by your last name. It's
Oh.
all during the month.
Oh,
Really?
we didn't know that.
I didn't either.
Well, and so she, has to pay her rent and all those other bills, obviously, and then the utility bill comes, and sometimes she has enough left over, sometimes she doesn't, and if she knew, she would do the help, but she doesn't. That's what they were telling me, so I'm just bringing it up. And again, this is just recommendation. I apologize, Councilman Byers, I don't have I had the additional information on legislation, but it's in my office. I guess I forgot to give it to Deborah.
But that's one thing I definitely would recommend is later on, or not later, but soon, rather, to go back and look at the utility policy and start looking at making some changes.
Right.
And so, because we also have to talk about the adjustments as
Right.
well. And
Because
that's
we
another
are
topic
losing
as
money
well.
on those too. Okay. All right. Councilman Martinez, there's no action, it's just discussion.
Yeah. If Social Security is divvied out throughout the month, I mean, by the last name, even the last name of Z would receive their payment by the 25th.
Okay.
So
By the 25th is,
That's when they're due. So
That's when the
technically,
bills are due.
So at the end of business day on the 25th, if they come after 5 o'clock and they they pay it with using the Dropbox, we'll come in the morning, take the payment, we'll credit their account that they paid on the 25th. But after 8 o'clock when we open business, now they're considered late. So.
all right.
So we need to research that then, because if that's the case,
And we can look at different ways, and just an example, if we do push it to the 30th as an example, or that they're due on the 30th
Why do we
rather
have
than the
that
25th.
date? Is there a reason for
I
it?
don't know, that was just what's been in policy.
Oh,
I'm not sure
really?
on the 25th. I mean,
I'm sorry I interrupted, I didn't know about this stuff.
but we need to go back and revisit the policy.
yeah, we need to relook at everything
Yeah.
before we do anything, because
And right now, we are.
I know when I get all my,
Right.
Uncle Sam paychecks
Sure.
and everything, so, and I budget around that, so.
And all they have to come in, just come and talk to us.
Yeah.
And communicate with us, and we'll definitely work with them, so.
All right, so we will give you can work with these people that have these issues for
But I
now,
mean,
until we
what happens
do.
also is that, okay, you have them one time, and they become delinquent, and I think they expect that every month, well, you're gonna let me get an extension anyway, so I'm okay. And that's where we had that problem.
All right, until we get the policy looked at.
Yeah,
All right.
so.
I'm sorry. Councilman Martinez, anymore? That's good.
Leroy, obviously, you're exercising some latitude working with the people already, and the only thing I could suggest possibly would be the ability to waive the late fee for half dozen or dozen people who are on provable fixed income with a specific date that shows up. The checks, if their check arrives on the 27th every month, they might be experiencing that break in their ability to cover that. So. My recommendation is that, at least we're not going to experience a huge financial hit if we waive the late fee on a dozen or so people.
Would this be
So,
for all groups, or just certain groups? Certain-
I'm thinking fixed incomes, Social Security settlement checks and so on, and that are provably arriving that late in the month. So
All right.
that's just my recommendation.
Good. Councilman Byers?
Okay, you said it wasn't going to affect it much, but here in the background, the first paragraph, it says fiscal impact on the utility revenues is substantial. How substantial is that, and what are we talking?
That's positive. We get $50.
I understand, but, okay, so, all right, or do we have reconnects? Are they in our budget? We count on? Okay, all right. Again, this had no
Yes, sir, I
documentation, this had no
apologize before we
documentation,
started.
nothing in the packet to tell us
Thank
how
you,
much it was going to. But I do think that we need to work with people that are in dire straits. I feel from, the other side of that coin is, there are people that it doesn't matter whether we work with them, whether we change the date. There are people that are going to be late, whether the moon comes up in the east or the moon comes up in the west. They're going to be late. And those people, like you say, I think we need to weed those out from the ones you're talking about. This is a lady that's having you know, she lives on, what'd you say, 1,200 a month? I mean, we need to work with some people, a person like that. I have no problem with that, but I agree, we need to work, and we need to get something like that, because we don't have it in policy, do we? Do we have a policy that we work with people, that we work with
I don't
people?
believe so. I hope
Yeah.
that's here.
I mean,
Y'all changed it here just.
okay, if we have that policy, then we need to do that.
I just want to make sure that we cover, that we're not just
We
being
can't-
selective on certain groups.
Pick and
Because we have other
choose.
individuals that, hey, I lost, I lost my job or whatnot, so do we help them? Do we not help them? So that's.
We need to get this
I think it needs to
policy
be
pretty well,
Across the board.
we need to get it set down so we know, you know, so we've got, so you're not accused of, well, I favored them and I didn't favor that.
Exactly.
This guy lost his job and we gave him thing, and we may not have known this guy lost his job or something like that, but I think we need to, before we start doing it pretty much wholesale, we need to have that policy
One thing we
tightened
would
up.
also look at, we go back and look at their payment history to make sure that they're not the
Right.
repeat offenders and people.
That's why I say, you're gonna find that the same people that are late are generally late every month, one after the other, after the other, after the other. And those are the ones that I think you need to not worry about the late fee. But like this lady here that's
Sure.
on a fixed income of $1,200 a month, man, that's gotta be tough.
I've paid that late fee a few times.
That's it.
I have to.
Really?
Things happen.
All right, Mr. Byers, have you finished?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Councilman Schuler.
I don't know how you pick and choose. That's the problem with
We
this whole
can't really,
situation.
we have to look at, I think just everyone in general as they come in, and I've been working with everyone,
Yeah.
so as our utility department, but again, we go back and look at their history, because if they're those repeat offenders, and, I mean,
I have a hard time being compassionate to a repeat offender,
Yeah, that's hard.
you know, and like Councilman Byers said,
You'd say Jesse, that's fine.
they, you know, you're gonna have some that are gonna push the envelope all the time, you know, so, I don't know, I guess we need to go back and look at policy.
You guys need to work with Priscilla, not Priscilla, Patricia. Listen to her. She goes through
and
it.
I do have to say this, Patricia, the ladies up in front, they get the brunt of it. Last week, they literally were cussed out by 2 citizens because of their bill. That's just unacceptable, so I mean.
Is their last name Shearhart?
Are you
Thank you
good?
very much. Yes, I'm finished now.
Listen, Dr.
I have a couple of comments. I mean, the city runs the utility company as a business. The city cannot subsidize its citizens, or we won't produce the operating funds we need to run the city. I think we have a lot of good policy already. I think that we're doing a lot of things that you mentioned, several of them. We try to work with people within the framework of the current policy. Now, there's 2 things that I can suggest that might be helpful. When a person first moves here and starts an account, if they're in this situation where they have a single source of income, maybe we could give them a month or something of leeway where we don't penalize them to try to get their budget adjusted so that by the second month they get into a normal budget. That would be one thing we could do. The other thing I'd like to suggest is, do we have any mechanism for people who have had an account for at least 12 months to go to an averaging system where they just pay 1/12 of their last year's bill every month on the same day, and then at the end of the year, there's a reconciliation. If they need to pay a little more, we have to distribute that cost next year and adjust their payment up or down, but that would fix their payment to an average every month on the same day, and would help them to budget a little better, and maybe we'd be flexible on the first month getting it right.
Sure.
But, I mean, most big cities have such a policy. San Antonio has one, and it works very well.
They do.
So-
I think to put that in, you're right.
We definitely-
I would suggest those 2 things for starters, but I'm opposed to the city subsidizing any citizens unless there is a situation that complies with the state law and we follow the state law. I mean, if we get into a terrible situation with weather, the state law provides us guidance and we have to follow it. And we should.
Yes.
But otherwise, I think we have to review the policy and change it if necessary, but maybe you could look into those two ideas.
Okay, any more comments?
Can I ask a question about it? How does that averaging work? You average your last year, and then what about the difference at the end? You do, what was that? Do you have to pay it all up at one
Last year
time? or-
divided by 12.
Right.
And then on the 12th month, you have to do a reconciliation,
Right.
and if you're a little over or a little under, you make the adjustment in the average you're going to pay next year.
So do you,
So you just
like,
try to-
let's just say you were under $500, you have to come up with that
You
math
have
then?
to, well,
Or
you
do they
have to
add-
put in the wage you're
where's that average?
paying next year.
Okay.
To catch, now, that means we may not get all of our money on exactly the day it's due, but in those people who are forced into this, it may be something that will give them the stability they need.
I've kind of heard of that, but I didn't know how that end of the year worked out, but, you know, I guess you put that in, you can up their average and.
Kind of becomes a one-year loan for the next year. So.
Okay, good discussion. All right, so this is, again, we have that item to, we are going to meet, we're going to set a date for a workshop on these things.
Yes, ma'am.
Good. All right, we'll go to the next one, which is me again. And this again was citizens who came to me about what Mr. Lee said in his comment. Their driveways were blocked. There were signs everywhere. What did I write? I didn't go. Discussion and action on requiring permits, possible fees, and time limits for garage yard sales. All right, this is item 11, and the stuff that I got was recommend council discuss a garage yard sales permit program such as that of the city of San Antonio to mitigate illegal off-premises snipe signs as well as traffic congestion due to such signs, violations of the city sign and signage ordinance, chapter 24. The recent annual citywide yard sale, sponsored by Nip and Tuck and supported by the city, was successful due to the aggressive advertising which conforms to Castroville sign and signage ordinance, chapter 24. Residents are not required to register, which includes ads with their garage sales locations on the city map. Residents hold personal garage sales and use snipe signs to advertise. The snipe signs are located within visibility of highway and street traffic. Snipe signs are not permitted in the city or TJ areas except as provided in the section 24-62 of the sign and signage ordinance. After the citywide yard sale, snipe sign code violations were and are still visible. The citywide yard sale is not the only time in which garage sale snipe signs are spotted across the city in violation of the sign ordinance. A permit program such as that is used in San Antonio would mitigate these violations. The fiscal impact of implementing would be positive. The additional time and money the city must spend to remove snipe signs and process the code violations would not be needed. The only upfront funding would be the cost of decals if the San Antonio garage yard sales permit program were implemented. The packet shows the way that San Antonio does it. They have, I think it was $5 to get the permit, and all you do is I'm having a garage sale, and the city gives them decals for 2 signs. And one snipe sign can be on the premises. The second snipe sign is anywhere they like, but they have to remove it right after the sale, when it's the next day. It has to be gone. And anyway, this again was brought up to me by several citizens who could not even get out of their driveways because cars just park randomly all over the place and our streets are already small. So I did bring it up, and I asked that we discuss it. I did not ask for action, it's just discussion. I don't know if it says action on the agenda.
It does, no action.
Well, so, Councilman Dyer.
I think we have adequate permit definition now. I'm not in favor of radically changing it. I think the core problem here is we don't have enough compliance, and that's something we're trying to fix. We're trying to hire more compliance people, and I think if we can get that staffed properly, we can probably do a better job. I'm not in favor of putting more government regulation on people for this kind of thing.
And when we have the announcement is closed for the code person?
I believe it's closing this Friday.
It closes this Friday.
I spoke to John earlier, and they're going to start the interview process.
John,
So-
yeah, closes.
But they can actually start interviewing, so.
Oh, you've started,
So
wonderful.
They can start interviewing.
Oh, okay,
But it closes November 29th.
Okay, next Friday.
okay, great. All right,
I got a couple of, I got a comment, but I need a question first answered. What is a snipe sign?
those are those little for sale signs you could buy at Walmart, and you
Okay.
put them on trees.
Never heard that term before.
It's the official word. I don't know
Okay.
how they call them that either, honestly.
I'm with,
Sorry?
It's like a picket sign.
okay, picket
It's
sign.
defined in our
Why do they call
ordinance.
them snipe sign?
I've never heard of it until now.
Yeah, that's,
It's defined in our
Snipe
ordinance,
hunting, but I've
under the
never heard of
definition.
I heard that one too around here.
You ever been snipe hunting?
Yes, I have. Have I ever taken somebody snipe hunting? Yes, I have.
I would be like Councilman Dyer. I'm not for this at all. I mean, is it a pain in my neighborhood on yard sale days? Yeah, but no more of a pain than it is on Halloween. I mean, you gonna put a permit on Halloween too?
And these came from your area.
Well, I'm just telling you, yeah, I mean, it coagulates the whole, it congests the whole city
Yeah.
on the
Well,
citywide yard sale, but it's only for one day.
Yeah.
2 days?
I don't know.
Saturday and Sunday?
I don't know.
Oh.
When is it?
Oh, yeah, okay, I got you.
I don't know.
2 different times of the year.
Oh.
I'm good with it. I don't want to overburden everybody with more government regulations either.
Okay, you spoke for your citizens that complained.
Yeah, nobody's complained to me. Tell them to come complain to me.
Well, it's too late because I
All
put
right.
it out for them. Councilman Byers.
Do we have any kind of an ordinance on garage sales?
I don't believe so.
I thought we did.
It's the citywide yard sales fundraiser for the animal control, or is that what it is?
Right, but what I'm asking is, do we have a standard like this, something similar to what the mayor provided us here? Do we have some kind of an ordinance on
Car sales.
I haven't heard any complaints. I'm not saying you haven't had them, but I haven't heard any complaints, and I don't, I realize some people make a living at garage sales, and that's probably, could be a problem, and if there is, then we need to do something maybe about that, but I haven't seen too much, so I don't see too much reason to go for it. And how much said the fiscal impact would be positive? How positive?
They wouldn't have to go running around picking up snipe signs and
How much
writing
that
out
cost?
violations. I don't know. I know our Amby would give us reports where he did 20 of them at a time.
Okay.
We all have those reports. You should have them.
I do have that. This is all I have right here.
No.
But I'm just curious,
It was,
how much money is it going to make us to have,
That's not
to have
money.
this? And then what's it cost to pick up 25 signs?
Got to ask the police department.
Well,
This
that's,
is-
I mean, it's
When I
here,
talked to
that it should be,
San
I think we
Antonio-
should have that in here if we're going to talk
When I
about it.
talked to San Antonio about this, their reasoning was not to make money off garage sales. Their reasoning was because people were holding garage sales at residents that weren't their residents. They had way too many snipe signs. Of course, San Antonio is much bigger than we are. People would have garage sales every weekend, and as you said, they were using them for income. And there was one other weird thing, I can't remember what it was. It was something like
I can see that
The
being a
animals.
problem in the city of San Antonio.
the animals were, somebody got bit or something, and then the city was liable because they had a garage sale or something, I don't know. But again,
Well, I do thank you for putting snipe signs in there. I did have to look that up and improve my vocabulary.
well,
So now I know what a snipe sign is. Okay. But I'm,
and, you know, I'd like to,
I've finished. Go ahead.
okay, I'm sorry. Councilman Carey?
We do have some ordinances in place with regards to signage, and of course, people disregard those ordinances consistently. I don't think that adding any more ordinances is going to change that. We have parking ordinances, and when people park their vehicle in such a way as block traffic during the garage sales, I don't think any future ordinances or additional ordinances are going to change that either. I have had my driveway blocked. I've had people block the street in front of my house. Just park their truck and get out. And you can't fix that with rules.
Okay.
So that's all I got to say.
Councilwoman Martinez.
I don't see a reason for us to have a limitation, because I was looking at the supporting documentation you provided, like San Antonio limits each resident maximum 4 garage sales a year, per calendar year, not to exceed 1 garage sale per quarter. We don't need to govern our people like that. I got a few people in my district that they are senior citizens. They do a garage sale every now and then to give them a little bit extra cash to pay for medication, food, that kind of stuff. So I'm not going to penalize my people for trying to support themselves. They're not doing it as a business or anything. It's just, okay, they need extra money because they're being put on a new medication, or, you know, something's happened, something's come up, an emergency's come up, and they need emergency cash. I mean, I go to, my street's clogged no matter what day of the year you go down, whether if it's going down Geneva Street, you're going to be blocked either way, whether it's functions going to Lions Park, or going to the school, or the post office, or what have you. Geneva's always congested no matter what, and going into my neighborhood. So it makes no sense to, I mean, it is what it is.
I have a question. So is this citywide, this nip and tuck thing, it's only nip and tuck, right? The citywide yard sale? And we put that on and we give the money to nip and tuck?
Well, I think we also put it down, don't we also let them use the Houston Square?
The nip and tuck, Kyle McVeigh that's under nip and tuck, she has always taken care of it. She provides the information to them. It's not city sponsored.
Oh, okay.
Now, she raises the money for a future city shelter. But that has always been her. She's taken it on. Now, they do put it up here up front for people to be able to sign up. They come by and pick up the money and look at the map. We do allow around the city Houston Square.
Well, there is a charge on that Houston Square. Who gets that money?
We do not charge for Houston Square that I'm aware of.
Yes, you do.
Nip
Somebody
and tuck
does.
Huh?
Nip and tuck does.
Okay, somebody does.
Well, they charge a certain fee.
Okay, that's what I'm saying. They
I
get
think
the-
it's $5 or $10.
So they're the one, they get
But
it.
it goes towards the shelter.
Okay, that's what I
As
was
far as I know,
curious.
all the monies go towards
She
the
did
shelter.
provide an update, and I'll certainly you guys give it to Deborah. so
Yeah,
I can share
she
that with
should
you
have
guys.
given us.
She comes.
does.
Yeah, because I know,
That's off the subject, but.
and it's I tell you what, this is a good idea too, to have that citywide garage sale, because I emptied out a lot of stuff. My wife rented a place, one of those stalls down at Houston Square, and I had hurt back for a week after hauling her stuff. But it was something like $5 or $10. I was just
Exactly.
curious where, it's Nipper Tuck gets that then, right?
So, and they, like you said, she has an update on it because she lets the council know because it's going towards a future.
So would that be a
shelter.
special permit,
$30.
a special event?
Well, it's
I mean,
citywide, so.
citywide, it could be at a special event.
And then that way we could have some control over the traffic because it'd have to go through police.
I mean, we can make sure as these events happen that they're out patrolling and just making sure that, you know, they're not
Is that-
blocking driveways and so forth.
Like in this case, the people whose fire, they could call the police and the police would have to get those people to move.
Well, they would do that in general anyway. I mean,
Okay.
whether it's a, yes.
All right.
it's-
So what do we do? This is just recommend, so we discussed it, there's no action.
No
Good?
action.
All right. All right, now, this is Miss Brianna, and her packet are the ordinances. And we are going to look at updates on ordinances to repeal the City of Castroville Code of Ordinances, tree preservation, replace it with a new one, and the comprehensive fee schedule to tree preservation and modular homes.
Hi, good evening.
All yours.
Thank you. So yeah, it was brought to my attention that two ordinances that the city needed to look at was the tree ordinance and then also the modular home ordinance. So I kind of took what people had told me about the tree ordinance and I modified it. I don't know if y'all had a chance to read through the very extensive tree ordinance, but I did, some points I wanted to make that I did approach was I removed the legacy trees from the ordinance because from what I hear, we don't have legacy trees. We've never had legacy trees. It says in the original ordinance that the city secretary has a list of legacy trees. I asked Deborah, we don't have a list of legacy trees. So I removed that completely except for a very small little piece where I left in that says city council can appoint a legacy tree if for whatever reason they wanted to. So just if that's something y'all wanted to do. Another thing is that some of the tree species have been removed. I went and I looked at cities around us and just in general to see if there was maybe an endangered species on our list, and I did remove quite a few because they didn't seem like they needed to be on there. I couldn't give you, if y'all want any questions answered, let me know. I'm just kind of going through this. And then the next point I made is that the city arborist has been removed from the ordinance because we do not have a city arborist. I don't have any knowledge that there ever was a city arborist, so that has been removed as well. The caliper to measure a tree has been removed because for most cities they just use the DBH, which is the diameter at breast height. That's pretty standard for all the cities around us as well. And then I included the update to the fee schedule in the back because if we're going to update the ordinance, I would assume that we would update the fee schedule as well.
Real quick.
Yes, ma'am.
So, as we know, this would still need to go to the attorney if we agree. They don't have to go to P&Z. So, that's what we're doing now, right?
I think, yeah, this is just a little bit for direction from city council, so I know if I'm going in the right direction or if there's something that y'all think needs to be addressed or not need to be addressed, things like that. Like if you look at the second page of the agenda item, I said maybe things to consider. Would the city like the survey to be done by approved surveyor, or is that something that maybe we don't need? The next thing is, does the city want to include the ETJ in this ordinance? Because it's mentioned throughout the ordinance, ETJ, but I don't think we've ever tried to do anything with that. So those are just a couple points I made when I was going through them that maybe we could talk about.
Would you like them to discuss it now or write notes? What would be easier for you?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know.
I'd like to comment on it.
You have a comment? I don't mind taking some comments, and if there's something you would like more extensive for me to look into and get back to y'all, and I can do that as well.
Councilman Dyer.
I think you did a very good job. The way you provided us red line and markouts made it very easy to see what changes you're recommending. Just for the sake of clarity, what we're doing here is trying to finish a job that we started in January when the city council voted to repeal, but we didn't have a new ordinance ready. I read the whole thing very carefully. I think it's a great job, and I think you should, whatever administrative procedure we need to go through to get it approved, I think we should press on with it, and I like it. I think you took all the stuff out that, in my opinion, was way over and above what we needed. So I like it. I think you did a good job, and I support it.
Thank you very much.
Councilman Schumer.
I got a headache reading this thing.
Trust me, I did too.
Talking about government control and not controlling people, and man, I don't know. You took a whole bunch out, and I appreciate that very much. I don't know if we should take more. If I got a tree in my backyard that's threatening my house and I got to go through a permitting process to cut it down or get it removed?
Well, can I clarify something? For the
Please.
tree, for the tree ordinance, it's not every tree you have to go through. It's only if it's considered like a heritage tree, which has to be so big around before it has to go through all of this process. But I understand what you're saying. I know it's very extensive. I thought so too. So.
Yeah. That's all I have.
Councilman Byers.
Well, I don't particularly think we need one of these at all. I feel like the man owns a property, if he needs to cut a tree down, he needs to cut a tree down. Now, if you have a big heritage type tree in your yard, I think you're pretty much of an idiot for cutting it down unless unless it's diseased or something, because all it does is add value. It says the survey, if you want a survey done, who's going to pay for that?
It would have to be the owner that paid for it.
Well, they don't want it.
Yeah, I know.
Why do I have to pay for a survey if I don't want?
The tree.
If you want the survey, why don't you pay for it? I thought we had pretty well gotten rid of the tree ordinance, and I think we should. Thank you.
Okay. Councilman Terry?
I was pretty critical of this ordinance when I first read it. I haven't had a chance to study this particularly, but what I've read, I've seen a couple things that I would like to raise, issues I'd like to raise with regards to some of the terms and some of the things that are left. As one who has performed tree surveys numerous times, hundreds of times, I wasn't qualified under this ordinance
Okay. I did take the qualifications out.
previously.
Yeah, because I thought those, be experienced like for 12 years or
And
something was just crazy.
Fortunately for me, my daughter has a master's degree in biology and was working for me, and she qualified as a tree surveyor.
Yeah.
But one of the issues that I brought up previously was the fact that in this illustration where you show a tree survey, a sample tree survey, that's on page 17, I spend enough time testifying as an expert witness in court as a surveyor. This would hold no water at all. I mean, this is, the first question that I would have the attorney ask is, was this prepared by a licensed surveyor? And the answer would be no, and it would be thrown out of court. So it's basically a useless effort. And that was one of the problems I had with this ordinance in the first place. I hope to thoroughly examine this in the near future, and I will be happy to provide you with my notes on that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Councilwoman Martinez? I have a recommendation of, I know there's arborists in San Antonio. Maybe getting with them and working with them, ask them to review this, because they are the SMEs, they're the subject matter experts, to give input and guidance. That way we meet all the local, state, federal laws governing this. That way we are covered across the board and meets our standards of what we need here, but yet there's no doubt if it goes to, court or something like that.
Okay.
Because they are there, you can pick their brains.
Yeah.
We're going to enclose this memorandum, and if you remember, this is a on-call planning service that's doing the ordinances.
The Freeze Nichols didn't do this. I did this one.
You did this one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, but you could get them to look at it to assure.
I'm trying to not push too many things on the Freeze and Nichols, because then we won't get a lot of bang for our buck if we just keep throwing things at them. So right now, I'm having them focus on the sign ordinance, and then when they're done with that, if we still have funds left, then I'll have them revisit something else.
Okay, so,
Yeah.
because we hired them with that intent, that they would have this background. I remember when Mr. Elliott and I discussed it, that Friesen Chance had this background. He was an expert making sure legislation was...
Oh, yes, he does. And that's why he went ahead and did the modular home one, and he's working on the sign one, because he does have that background. It's just throwing 12 ordinances at them. We won't get anything back within the time frame or within the money amount.
So you would like them to just send these?
Yeah, that's fine. I would love to hear y'all's comments and stuff. And just also, the way I went through this process is I pulled, the tree ordinances. I pulled 7 tree ordinances. 3 from like cities of our size, San Antonio, Seguin, New Braunfels. And I kind of conformed ours to kind of what they're along their guidelines, and with like keeping what we already had a little bit. So that's kind of my process on how I did this, just to let you know.
How big was it before you?
Thank you.
Oh, it was 25 pages before, and I think
25?
Yeah, and I think the new one is down to like 16. So I know that it's still pretty extensive, but it's,
I'd like to see it put too. It's too intense.
yeah.
And nothing against you,
Yeah.
Brianna, everything you've done, is fantastic, but it's too intense, I think.
Okay, yeah, that's why I wanted to bring it to y'all so I could get some feedback. Yeah. Okay.
Any more discussion, questions? Okay, so you've noted what they said, and then if they have further things, they'll let you know.
Yeah, I would love to get y'all's feedback, and then we can rediscuss this
And now
to
we're
make it good.
Well, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, well, I got another one.
Next,
So next is
Modular home.
the modular home.
that's a tip more difficult.
Yeah, so this one is something that Friesen Nichols did do, Chance with Friesen Nichols. I don't know if y'all were able to look at that one as well, but what he did is he addressed certain sections of our existing ordinance, and then he also made recommendations of things he should add to the ordinance, our manufactured home, because that's what it would fall underneath. So let me think of some things that he did. Sorry. Okay, so let's see. He said that the language was generally fine, but he did tweak it just to be more politically correct in a few areas. He added definitions of a modular home because we didn't have one, so if we include one, at least we can, regulate what that is. And then he added 2 sections, a section on a single-family design and then a section on a modular housing. The main reason that the modular housing, it must be treated equally as any other building that comes in. We can't discriminate against modular homes, but we can regulate it. So if we use certain language within our ordinance, then we can make it look like a stick-built house instead of a modular home, and that was the goal of what he did with our ordinance. So.
Okay, we'll start with Councilman Martinez.
I understood his notes and everything like that, because the main thing, I had a couple of people concerned about, I thought they were getting away with trailers, and it's like, no, they're not getting away from trailers. It's because the 2 trailer parks in my district, and no, they're not getting away from, they're just making sure they don't look like wrecks.
Exactly, yeah.
So, but no, thank you.
So one of these could not go in a trailer park?
A modular home can go in a manufactured home park if they would want to, but a manufactured home has to be in a manufactured home park. So that's the difference. A modular home isn't regulated to a manufactured home park, no.
I'm sorry. Councilor Carey?
Yeah, the state of Texas created this category and essentially brought the modular home in as a code-compliant structure. In other words, it have to have real 2x4s and real plumbing and other such things built to local code. The problem, for instance, I don't know if you know this, but Dr. Best's business up on toward the hotel, he's got his little clinic there.
Okay.
Those were medical modules from the military, and he basically established them on a foundation and wrapped them in a building. And you wouldn't know that unless someone told you.
Yes.
The problem I see with the current modular homes is that they look like manufactured homes. And the one that we have in town, I'm afraid, looks like a manufactured home. So I think, as you said, having some regulations about appearance, and unfortunately I hate to go there because having served on our design review board and Landmark Commission for a number of years, we shied away from telling people we controlled their appearance. So that might be really tough ground. So I look forward to I think we're having a workshop on this, so I look forward to getting there. Thank you.
Okay, Councilman Dyer, Byers, I'm sorry.
It looked fairly comprehensive to me, and I noticed you said something about politically correct, and I was questioning, I'm not sure what grandfather and how does that have a negative.
He had put like a little
I'm kind
excerpt.
of curious. I've never heard that.
Yeah, I mean, I hadn't heard it either, but he put a little expert saying that there's like a negative connotation
And
to
what is that
grandfathered in. I couldn't tell you exactly what negative, maybe that it's not to code because it was grandfathered in. I don't know. Yeah.
Well, I just kind of, other than that, I was kind of curious how that, why that was politically incorrect. But other than that, it looked like a very good start on this thing. Thank you.
I have a question that, piggybacking on what Councilman Carey said. So the Design Review Board and HLC will still have control over what's in the particular historic district?
I don't think that they have control over what's in the.
So even a modular home could go, well, it's not a district, but in that area.
The Landmark Commission only has review of the 96 historic structures that are
Yeah.
listed in the
But
1965
there could be a
survey.
modular home put among them.
Yeah, certainly, not right next door.
Okay.
They can.
All right, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, that's all right, as long as it has a slab. Is that what we're making adjustments to?
There's like a few different things. We're not allowed to tell people what their house looks like. We can't, according to House Bill, God, I think it's 2482 that just passed in September. We can't tell them you have to have a certain % of masonry. We can't even tell them what to build this outside of their houses with, for the most part. As long as it's in the building codes, the international building codes, it's allowed within our city. So what he did is he included things that have to, like the pitch of the roof. It has to be a certain pitch within the city because most stick-built houses have a certain pitch, but with modular homes, the pitch is really flat. So one thing he's proposing is to make the pitch a little steeper, so it looks like a stick-built house.
I see.
Yeah, things like that. I don't know if he included a slab in here, but I don't even know if we're allowed to include slabs as part of that as well.
Just has to be engineer certified by
Yeah,
the state engineer.
Permanent
A
foundation.
permanent foundation,
It could be
yeah.
a pier and beam, it could be a slab, the same as a stick house.
Yes.
Right.
You have an option when you build a stick house, if you want to build a pier and beam, you can. Just has to be, it has to be approved by the state engineering board. Are you finished?
Yes,
One more
thank you.
Oh, okay.
I think that he's done about all we can possibly do when you consider that what the state has done. The state has really taken control away from municipalities with the new regulations.
Yeah.
And I think the things he's put in here are all good. I think it's probably about at the limit of what we can do. And if we tried to go beyond this, we would just end up in litigation with lots of expense, and we'd probably lose. So I think this is a good start, and there's just some realities we have to come to grips with, that the state has trumped us on this.
Yeah, and I guess the biggest thing is that if we don't actually take an action or go forth with anything, then people can bring these in, and right now we have no protection against the city of what they look like at the moment. So if we needed to further in the future and readdress this, we can, but there's certain things that I think we need to address now.
Put this in place now.
Yeah, but it still has to go through P&Z, and I have to...
And the attorney.
And the attorney, of course, yeah.
And I remember...
It'll come back in an ordinance form.
Yeah.
I remember when we had the last situation, it was in my district, and the city tried very hard to do everything they could do within their ordinance. And I think they did. They accomplished everything they could within the ordinance. I think this ordinance gives us a few more things that you've mentioned that will help us to do a little better job.
Yeah.
But we're still going to be up against the state limits and the International Building Code, and citizens have to understand that.
Yes.
We don't have authority to change that. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay. So again, on this one, the same thing, we'll have them, you had their
Yes,
comments.
yeah,
and
if
then
y'all
they can
just provide me with any
continue
kind
to
of
send.
comments or further things I should do with them, and that'd be great. Okay.
And I'd just like to mention something. That's why we're working on development agreements, and they'll update you, but that's something that a development agreement gives us more, I don't hate to say control, but it does. It gives us more control with that legislation that we can't say masonry, we can't say hardy board, no hard, we can't. But when these residents come in, if we do ask for a development agreement, we can do things that we can't do this way. Thank you. All right. Any more? Sorry I interrupted. Nothing else? All right, next one is
Still me. Just kidding.
and she's going to talk about the task for Freeze and Nichols, which is our on-call, and that's Chance, right?
So I'm sorry, I asked him for this. It was kind of put on the agenda a little late, so I'd asked him for this thing, and I only got it to Deborah this past week.
That's this
so,
one?
Yes,
You don't
it's
have
and this is the memorandum he sent over because I had asked him to just let me know what he's working on, what things he's come across, when he plans to be being done, and so he went ahead and sent me this. So the things that he's trying to do with the sign ordinance right now is improve the readability. I don't know if y'all have ever looked at it, but it's pretty terrible. It jumps all over the place. You can find restrictions in one area, and then you'll go to a whole nother section, and then it's like, no, you don't need a permit for that. And we're like, wait, hold on. It doesn't match up very well. So he's going to try and improve the readability of it. The next thing that he's trying to do is just make it cohesive, just make sure it all flows very well, maybe include some pictures with like a chart that says, okay, for this kind of sign, it can only be this big, or it needs a variance. For this kind of sign, instead of it being so wordy, I think that's the biggest thing right now is it's too wordy. Let's see. And then the reason why I asked him to look at the sign ordinance is because after accessory buildings, I probably get the most permits for signs because there's constantly new businesses coming in and they want 2 to 3 signs each business. So I get a lot of inquiries about signs, and the first thing I always get is, man, y'all's ordinance is hard to read. And I'm like, yes, I know, we're working on it. And then the next thing is that he said that he should complete a draft by November 27th, so hopefully maybe at the next meeting I can have a draft over to y'all so y'all can take a look at it, but he should be completing that by November 27th, and then I'll review it. I like to review them first and kind of give him any feedback that I think, and then kind of regather again, and then I'll bring it to y'all.
Very good. And you are up again.
Yep.
So this is about the church.
Yep, and then for the church, the owner that was trying to host a church out of his house at 108 Tumbleweed, he sent me a letter, I think it's included in the packet, just stating that he's not going to be pursuing that. He did ask for a specific use permit. We didn't have a specific use permit, so I created one, and then I gave it to him, and then he decided he wasn't going to go through that route either, so he said that he's not going to be hosting it anymore, so.
Okay, Councilman
good.
Martinez, any questions?
Nope.
Councilman Carey?
None?
Councilman Byers? Councilman Schuhart?
Good job, Brianna.
Thank you.
Questions, thank you.
All right, thank you much.
Thank you.
Now, we are going to 15, which is the Parks and Rec, and this will be Devin. He is recommending that council approve and adopt updated policies and procedures and adding a late fee on monthly rentals, $5 per day. He just enclosed a list for you, and he will explain, but if we do change fees, you guys are aware that that would have to, again, go through,
We have to
amendment.
bring an ordinance back, this is more of an update.
Okay? All yours.
Good evening. Basically, this is just our current parks, RV park rules. There's no changes to it. There was a slight verbiage change on one item, but other than that, it's really because in our current policy book, it hasn't been updated since 2016. I know our payment per monthly charges and items like that have, but really I just wanted to update this and bring this before y'all so that y'all had a chance to look at if there was anything that you would like changed before our new reservation service kicks in. This is something that they'll have to agree with before they make reservations. So I wanted to, if there was anything that was a concern to y'all or y'all would like to see in here, that we brought it before y'all before we did that.
Do you want time to read it, or you've looked at it? Good. We'll start with Councilman Byers. Dyer, I'm sorry.
I think it's fine. I have no objections to any of it. I support it all.
Okay. Councilman Schuhart.
I feel the same way.
Councilman
Good job.
Carey.
Move forward.
Councilwoman.
Press on.
Thank you.
I just wanted to mention, we did discuss, I think it was Chief, I didn't read this, I'm sorry. we were going to make sure that they didn't have any records and, like bad people, I don't know how to
Criminal
say that.
history?
Yeah,
Background check.
yeah, that's the word.
Background check, there you
Well,
go.
not exactly background check, just a cursory
Shallow
look to make sure, they're not.
We currently don't ask for any of that. The police chief, I think what we were referring to is if we had a park host that had some kind of representation at the city. But at this point in time, we haven't pursued that until we're ready and we feel like it's prepared and ready in a good direction. That is something we will look at in the future. Then that will go into the discounts that does offer, which in the past was free rent, which we've been looking at a lot of that stuff, but that's outside of this kind of thing. And I didn't really touch on the late payment. We have a certain stipulation on any payment utility-wise for our citizens, so we wanted to include that in here because we didn't have anything in the books. And we had quite a few people, they just paid us when they wanted to, and that wasn't acceptable. And since we don't have a fee on our pay schedule, we can't enforce anything.
Right.
So that's really why we wanted to bring it to y'all. And like Deborah mentioned, we can bring that whenever the fee schedule, but I wanted to bring this into it so that we could show y'all that that was something that we were lacking.
So you said these RV park rules, that's nothing different. So we don't even need to do
In
anything.
2016 it was adopted, but it's always good to have it updated, so.
Okay, so that's only an update, and what we need to do action on is the ordinance and the fees,
Fee schedule.
Can that be acted on right now?
because these are different.
All it is the very bottom one with asterisks that says late monthly payment will result in a $5 per day charge.
Okay.
And in your motion, if you wish for that to happen, you could approve it, or you could have staff bring back an ordinance on it, because we'll have to bring an ordinance back to,
Has to go in your comprehensive.
I'm trying to think, I'm sorry, it's in our comprehensive fees, and
Fee
so we'll
schedule,
have to
yeah.
bring an ordinance back, amending them.
Okay.
I suggest that we just do that. We
So
just bring it
just-
back as an ordinance adjustment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so I just want to be sure all these other things are regular. There's nothing changed. The only thing that's changed is the late monthly payment. That's what we're action
And
on.
the additional utility charge, right?
Yeah, the two asterisks.
The additional utility charge of $50.
Yeah, that was brought.
You added that at a previous meeting.
Oh,
Yeah,
Can you
yes, sir.
review that real fast? I don't remember that.
So between the months of March to September, we have a $50 per month on units that are staying longer than a month, and that's just because the utility charge, our utility bill triples in that time just because of electricity use for these air conditioners and these units in general. And that was brought up in budget that we were going to accept and amend that to our comprehensive fee schedule. That way we could try to.
And that wasn't done?
Didn't we put that in there?
I think it's in there.
Yes, it
That
is.
part's
in there.
Yes.
So
All
we
right.
just have to deal with the $5.
The late fee.
All right, so
Right.
take off the utility charge, we aren't changing, so we're
Yes.
only doing the $5.
Right, late monthly payment.
All right, do I have a motion?
I move we accept the change of adding a late monthly payment, which will result in a $5 a day charge.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Carey seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed. And so Deborah, this would mean an actual amendment to the ordinance?
We'll bring back an
comprehensive?
ordinance the next meeting.
Okay,
Before we have to do that before we can implement.
all right, thank you. And you are
Thank you
up
again.
again.
Again,
And now he's Mr. Streets, and he's going to give us a streets update.
Mr.
And
Streets.
isolation, his recommendations or isolation of funds for rebuilding of roads, crack repair and high-density mineral seal, designating priority levels for all roads, scoping of roads before any major repairs, continuing of sign replacement and traffic control replacement. Fiscal impact is not really, those are just fund accounts? Okay, so we really don't have the money cost, but all yours, sir.
Basically, like the mayor mentioned, this is just an update on where we are. A lot of the street repair stuff outside of the maintenance that my guys currently do, and the sign replacement and the traffic control replacement, a lot of that stuff really happens in the later part, well, not during the winter, the warmer times of the year. So
Summer months.
a lot of that we really can't move on until then. One of the things we would like to bring to y'all is that we have we're looking at multiple options besides chip seal for long-term and preventative maintenance and then rehabilitation on the roads. The majority of the item, so the isolation of funds, we have a capital improvement of $150,000 for scoping, and with the direction of course, yes, sir.
What is scoping, Uncle?
It's just, I don't know if you remember in the video in our budget meetings, it's just a camera that goes through and checks our lines to make sure that we
I
don't
remember that, I
have
didn't know it was.
yeah, deterioration and stuff
But
like
John, wasn't that sewer? It's
Yes.
sewer, not streets.
Yes, but with that, they go the same way, because we don't want to put a new paint or coat of paint on a house without knowing what's underneath if the wood's rotted. So we really want to,
And we don't want to trench a
scope the
brand new
pipe
street.
first.
I don't have to dig it up after we paved it.
But like in River Bluff, we know our pipes are on the side. They're not under our streets. Had enough of broken pipes and it tears up our yards. It's not in our streets.
yes, there
There's
is.
certain connections that go across, but everything else are on the sides in our yards.
Sewer lines?
Everything is on the sides.
You're talking about laterals.
Yeah, the laterals go across, but that's only in certain areas. Otherwise, everything's in our yards, not under our streets. Yeah, trust me, I've had enough broken water lines.
All right,
So,
let's,
Well,
it's- yeah.
we are looking into all of that before we start jumping on streets and really getting into the nitty gritty. We were trying to make sure, and John's has a lot of background in this, so make sure that everything's good to go before we start on that. But we are looking at, one thing I don't know if y'all have seen before, which I've brought to y'all today, the high density mineral seal. That's something that we're looking at, especially for Country Village, right? Sorry, different cities have country something, and I don't want to get it wrong. But a lot of the road work that was done in the previous years, the condition of the road has started deteriorating either by lack of complete seal or express deterioration because we've had a lot of rain, and for some reason we are having some roads that were worked on that are having rapid deterioration, which shouldn't be. So that's on here. It's a very, compared to chip seal, is very inexpensive, and it will extend the life of the roads and put a stop to our really sinking ship. I know those are a lot of different terms, but that's something that I'm going to bring to y'all later in the year when we get some time, because it's a 20th of the cost to rebuild the road, and it stops all deterioration on roads. And that's something after we do River Bluff and we look at doing the repair on the road there, that we do look at doing, because this is something it's not new technology, but it's much more inexpensive. So that's why I wanted to bring that up, is because that's also something that we're looking at for some of our roads. The roads in town, the problem we run into is, of course, drainage, and then, of course, the scoping, and then the crazy cost. I mean, just...
And that's one thing, I hope y'all don't think that's went off, because we don't have a lot of budget this year.
No, that's
We're very
scary.
limited on how much we put in.
Yeah, because we paid $400,000 for those streets, and now you're telling us we're going to have to redo them.
Well,
$400,000, and we didn't even finish River Bluff. It's,
so what happened to the remainder of the money?
no, they spent it all.
well, no,
It goes back into the budget.
money on
No,
the
sir,
budget.
it is spent. I will give you
So
the
So
numbers.
Leroy has a little bit more knowledge on the budgeted items, because that 400,000 was not spent.
Yes, it was. I
So
have
basically,
some.
the way it works is, okay, so there was a budget, there was a streets budget a couple of years ago that was set up. Budget is just a number. So that 400,000 was never encumbered, so we never really took the money out of that budget to set aside for the repairs, to make whatever repairs necessary. So at the very end of the year, you look at your budget, but you also look at your actual. So that money, even though you didn't spend it, it's just a budget number. It's not actual cash. It just stayed there. I mean, the cash didn't stay there. The budget was just, is just a budget the way it is. So at the end of the year, when the auditors come in, they'll look to see what did you actually, bring in revenues, what did you spend, and then what do you have left over. But on the budget side, if you didn't spend it, you didn't spend it. It doesn't
So we
necessarily
didn't
mean it
spend
rolled over.
$400,000 for those streets.
No,
No.
we didn't use all that money.
No, I will tell you, and I will give you the papers, because he didn't give you the packet. The street, we did not have enough money to finish River Bluff. That is why River Bluff was not finished.
That's not true.
It wasn't
It
even
is true.
started.
It is true.
It wasn't
I've
even
got
started.
the papers. I've got them, and I will show them to you next meeting. I will share them with
Was never
everyone,
started.
because you're saying I'm lying, and
How
I'm
much,
not.
how much money
I have
did we
the
budget
paper.
this year for streets?
I don't
Roughly,
know what y'all budgeted.
we've
I'm asking them a
isolated,
question.
we've isolated what it takes normally for us to do street repair and maintenance for my guys, like material wise and small items, and that came to about $30,000. And we have $250,000 separated into the street drainage and street repair maintenance. And that's gonna be the money that was budgeted this year, because, I believe last year we had 400,000, but we didn't, we were instructed to put a hold on doing streets to make sure
Correct.
that we did it correctly and that we didn't just throw money at something that we weren't sure would work.
So where did that money, who paid Quo? Who paid that company?
That was 2 years ago. And that was through the water line.
I'm sorry.
That was water line.
No.
And that-
We're talking
No,
about
I'm
the
talking
seal
about
cover
the
over in
seal
Country
coat.
Village and wherever they went.
Sealco,
But we had it in the budget.
that we had to
It's
redo
been-
because it was so bad.
It was
so
about 2
poorly
years
done.
ago. And we had money set aside, and they paid them through that.
What money though, I'm asking?
It would've been
They had
over.
it set aside 2 years ago for street repairs. I mean, it was street repairs. And
And
maintenance.
a lot of this stuff
So that
we're-
money is, I remember when
We
Mayor
used that
Kelly
money for-
brought this up to council, he insisted that we cover those streets.
42% of the streets.
Right.
And we did not
We
finish
never
River
finished.
Bluff.
We never finished
You
a
didn't finish
lot.
Country Village either?
I couldn't answer that question. I know they did
Well,
Sunnyland and Village Path, but I don't know.
when we were supposed to pay the contract, you weren't here.
We didn't even
and
start
we didn't
River
wanna
Bluff.
pay it,
Well, the
because we
streets
didn't feel it
that
was
they
finished.
bid on were completed.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The-
well, and now
the
River
streets
Bluff
they
is
bid on
greater
were
than the
completed.
3/8 inch
Yep.
dips and everything, so we're at the point where we need
This,
to
this is
redo River
one
Bluff.
of the reasons, Deborah's been helping me, Leroy, we've been going through all these packets, trying to figure out what was planned since no one is here, and there was some costs that were quoted for us, and,
I have it all, I do,
yes.
believe me.
Yes, ma'am. Well, we have the streets and the, one of the things, the priority level of the roads is listed on here. And we have a map that was designated by the previous Public Works Director. We went through and marked all the streets and where it needed to be done. And that's why River Bluff and Country Village were on there. They were two that were, I guess, could be dealt with the quickest, and there was money budgeted for that. So one of the things that was listed on here was so that we could figure out the direction with that $250,000 that we have this year on, yes, we are looking into why we have roads that weren't finished and items like that, but there wasn't really direction for us on where to go from here.
So we have 500,000
He said
for
250.
streets. He said $250,000. Oh,
$250,000.
$250,000?
Yes, ma'am. And then
For?
that was budgeted for street repair and maintenance and drainage.
So Athens.
that could be, I mean,
It's not gonna take us very far.
no.
No,
Because we were tasked with a
we should have put more money on that.
Yeah.
Because we thought Athens Street, there was $2 million to fix the drainage.
No, that ain't even in the,
we were given instruction not.
So we're just doing streets, not drainage, or we're doing both?
there ain't enough money to do either there.
Well, with the help of Mr. Larry Sitter, Commissioner, and then also with the help of his guys, they've helped give us some kind of direction on that we should try to hit the stuff that we can fix now. The drainage, we're still looking into a lot of that stuff. I mean, throughout the city, any kind of drainage stuff is really drainage study related. I mean, we're not trying to interpret or figure out what direction we want to go. We're trying to figure out with the help of y'all, and then of course the county's helping us on anything they can spare. But really the funds, we've isolated what we can utilize and just continuous maintenance on the streets. That way that doesn't go away and that my guys can continue doing the repair there. But that $250,000 is what we can use on street repairs and drainage that y'all
Oh,
feel.
so you're not talking about actually the density mineral yet, or the rebuilding?
That is something we can look
In the
into for
future?
any of the roads that meet those requirements. I mean, if you want to say 80% on new repairs and builds after we get the scoping done, I can do that, and then I can look into it, or I can,
I am getting so many complaints from citizens and myself, and Sheeta knows, because we both live in River Bluff. The streets are horrible.
It is
Horrible.
I told you the other day, I stepped out onto River Trail, my street, going to get into my truck, and there's a dip right there.
And even the
And
cul-de-sacs.
that's in the middle of the street.
Cul-de-sacs are gravel now.
Yeah.
They're not even paved
It's-
anymore.
What we need to do is, if River Bluff's got the worst street in the city, that's the one we need to fix.
It's gonna be
I
millions.
have those streets
If we,
quoted.
whatever it takes to fix $250,000 worth of street,
Yeah,
that's what
do
we
it in
need to do.
phases.
That's what we're saying.
Yeah.
That's what we're
Yeah, do it
All
in
right, so
phases.
can y'all come back and give us that so we understand?
And we do have some lists from contractors. Of course, I'll have to get those updated and quoted and items that we can figure out. But yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I would love to get started on that. And
Nothing says you have to do it all right then and there.
So
Do
River
it in
Bluff is the
phases.
worst?
River
Or we
Bluff,
did-
I don't know.
We
They
never
need to
got
tell
the
us
chip
that.
seal.
no, we never got the chip seal.
Y'all did, we
You're
did.
fortunate you didn't
Yeah,
get chip
it's-
seal. You're fortunate, I'm telling you.
Yeah, well, I've heard.
You're
But
fortunate.
Yeah,
I
that's
would
why
like,
said we wasted
It was a waste of money.
$400,000. Yes,
That-
Mr. Byer.
We approved the budget at the end of September.
Dyer, sorry.
What I would like to hear is, I would like to hear a plan. I would like you to come back and tell City Council what you're going to do with the money we gave you in the budget. I keep hearing these briefings, but I never get any clear understanding of what are we going to do this year, this fiscal year, and when are we going to do it, and what are your priorities, so we can answer people's questions. And then I'm getting questions from people in my district about having no street at all.
Yeah.
You know, I'd like to see and hear your detailed plan for streets.
and a timeline.
Yes. What are you going to do this year? Because we're already halfway through the first quarter.
Yeah.
We shortchanged ourselves if that's what we did.
Like we talked about earlier.
Okay.
You don't have enough money to do major repairs. But what are you going to do with what we gave you?
Okay, let me get in order again, because I'm wrong, I shouldn't have spoken out. Councilman Sherritt, do you have something, questions or anything you want to say?
No, maybe we can come up with a little more money somewhere, but here again, we need to fix some streets. And if we only got $250,000 to fix a street, let's spend it. But let's spend it on the worst street. Somebody's got to tell us that, and I don't mean hire an engineer. We got a lot of local people in town that know how to do road work.
Yeah, they're experts.
And you can get their probably advice for nothing.
Yeah.
You know, I understand, Devin, that you want to check the sewer lines to make sure they're
That's John.
worthy of a repair. I totally understand that. I do.
I just want to do quote
If-
repairs.
if,
Quote repairs and then-
But we have that
Yeah.
budgeted, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that one's budgeted.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
I understand that, but still, $250,000 is a drop in the bucket.
Yeah.
The first year I was here, we had 400 was the number,
Yeah.
and we didn't finish with that, so there's some money that went somewhere. Did we put it in the, what do you call the savings account?
So
No,
at
it's-
at the end of last year, if y'all,
was-
there was a fund balance, and yes, you did, or this recent audit, but again, the budget is just a budget. If you don't use it, it doesn't roll over to the following year. So.
I understand that.
But we'll definitely come back with a plan, we'll with a timeline, and we'll make sure that we have
Let
a
the
prior.
rest.
Oh, sorry.
Councilman, nothing, Councilman Carey?
I understand that seasonal road repairs are very important. You do not want to be putting hot asphalt on cold pavement. It won't stick. You're wasting your time and your money. And I appreciate the fact that you're doing substrata studies to find out what piping and other plumbing and features need to be replaced. I do agree with Councilman Dyer that I would like to see a schedule and a timeline. I think we can do some very significant assessments at this point and come back and give us, I appreciate what you're doing. I think it's a good plan so far, so proceed. And I look forward to seeing the assessments and the prioritizing of certain streets. And I know that those streets in River Bluff are a wreck. I also happen to know that that asphalt was laid down on dirt, not compacted base. And so the substrate out there, no matter what you put on it, it's going to suffer. Every time it rains, the substrate gets soft. So fixing that is multi-millions of dollars. So that's all I have.
Councilman, thank you. Councilman Martinez?
Yeah, if we can get a timeline, projecting out for this next fiscal year, what we're going to do, when we're going to do it, for any of these projects, that we projected for this fiscal year. That way we can go to our constituents to say, yes, this is the plan. This is what they're planning to do. And nothing says you have to do it all at once. Do it in phases. That's how the military gets stuff done. They do it in phases. That's how Wilford Hall, the new hospital, got built, in phases. Do it in phases. But don't kick us down further down the road. We can't afford to do it. Because otherwise you'll have all of District 1 on your doorstep saying, all right, we've had enough. Because we've been kicked down the road enough times.
Any more? I was on council, District 1, when this came up. You weren't here. Sheena wasn't either, but we brought this up several times to Mayor Kelly, and his reply, which was already upsetting, was that River Bluff had to take out a bond to pay for it themselves because it was going to be so expensive. So,
I think that was for the electrical.
no, it was for the streets too, both. God, I was counsel. You weren't here. My God.
All right.
We have the notes, the minutes. I'll show them to you. Okay?
One thing we are looking into outside of River Bluff is the high-density mineral seal. We are looking at possibly doing a test area inside a country village because the deterioration is so fast right now that we are going to lose sections of that and have to do complete rebuilds. And that's not something we want to look at. And the warranty that we have been looking into from this company did not cover past a year.
Didn't cover it?
No, ma'am. So with that, it will not rejuvenate and put us back at 100%, but it could stop the bleeding at, per se, 80%. And that would be much smaller of a cost than, of course, some of the money that we're going to be throwing into River Bluff, per se. But what I want to do is possibly be able to bring this information back to y'all even next year for budget and be able to put down, $80,000. Yes, it's not money we want to, but then that could save us from spending another $400,000 in 5 years. So I know you said get a plan, but this is something that we could look at too. And I'll bring information on this, and it'll be, this is really quick. It's in and out, a quarter mile in a day. So it's something that I can bring y'all substantial information on also.
Is it like that rubber, like the rubberized type thing? It does like a seal and goes down so far into the ground?
It looks like a tar. It literally, it's a very, it's not the hot asphalt that you see.
No. They were at TML.
Yes.
I talked to them. Yes.
This is a company that's buy board. They can come in, do it, $25,000. This is how much it'll get us and go. And I'll be able to bring information to y'all and hopefully fix a lot of that deterioration. One thing we've also been looking at, I know this is a lot of information.
Yeah, but can you just summarize what you're going to do?
We found how much funds we have to spend.
Okay.
We are focusing now on getting information in a timeline for y'all. And now with the direction of what areas you would like us to focus on, I can give you exact start dates along with the amount of money it will cost us to do it, and if that includes stages on future budget impacts.
And someone summarize what council's gonna do for me? We're gonna tell him, anybody? You're just gonna go,
I think he's got a general idea.
when would you think, so we're just gonna work on this year, not next year, or you'll have both
I'll have information pertaining to all the budgeted amount.
for this year? And then
Yes, ma'am.
maybe projections for next year?
Based on the quotes that we get back, I'll have information on what this will look like long-term.
And so what can citizens expect right now? We're just gonna repair?
Continuous road repair, street signs replacement, and
What street signs are we replacing?
we're replacing mostly the ones that are deteriorated, but we are replacing some of them that are damaged, and a lot of the traffic control is related to stop signs, but those are being replaced too. Mostly they're just sun faded, depending on where they're facing. Yeah, the size. So some of them we are getting the size varied from, I know this isn't more information, I can bring them in also, but we went from a size, I think the total sign was this big, now it's like that big, and the actual letters are bigger so that people could read them, because that was a concern too, is that people were on top of them by the time they could read them.
A stop sign?
No, the street signs. But the stop signs are the same regulated ones. And I'll bring you in one of those. Maybe I can show y'all exactly what we're installing. So,
Well, maybe some couldn't read the stop signs because they were a little...
yeah, but mostly it's every few years you replace them depending on the direction they are.
Yeah.
The sun just deteriorates our signs. So, yeah.
How much do we budget to replace signs?
$5,000. Between both of them, it's $8,000. That went, I believe, the last order I submitted, we've done close to 150 replacements. So, we're getting moving.
All right, so Deborah, what do you have? What is this? There's nothing?
No, there's no, this was just an update.
And so council is required that he come back with a plan?
Staff knows the direction to
Okay.
come back with this.
Sounds like we need to come up with some more money for you.
Can you give me on something on these next two?
Have a right to-
Can you give me on these next two and try to put them together? So we can get them
Thank you, Devin. Thank you, John.
Thank you. Streets are, it's horrible. They're horrible. That's constant. And then
Stop
like-
talking about it, we gotta do something.
Yep, I agree. All right, the next ones are kind of Deborah's. We're going to reappointment of Miss Stacy Cross to 911. Deborah could explain that. There's no packet.
Mayor,
Yes.
could I suggest that we combine 17 and 18 and go ahead and get these
Sure.
done? I'd like to make a motion that we appoint, put our support behind Miss Stacy Cross to be appointed to the 911 ECC district and on the Medina County Appraisal District. Put all our votes toward Tim Hart. I'd like to make a motion on that.
Okay, we have a motion. Do I have a second?
I second it.
All right, Mr. Dyer seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Thank y'all. That's great.
The quarterly investment report, the last one, we actually, we discussed it, and I think it would be helpful, because this meeting is long, we'll put it with the finance report.
The quarterly financial report, yes.
Yeah, so when we get that at the next meeting, so you can discuss it, because I think everybody's pretty tired right now. So we'll have those two on the December 10th. All right, and now, executive session.
For the record, I won't be here December 10th.
Oh, okay.
You got,
Well, anyone
you got
else?
one before that,
Yeah,
the discussion on special meeting.
yes.
I'll remind you all of that. I'll be in Houston.
Okay. All right, so now we're going into executive session.
No.
21? No, I've got something else
20.
before.
20.
You have one.
Oh, the specially called meeting, thank you. This is just for you guys. It's to review that council policy that we talked about. So we really need to get the day down and set. Yes, sir.
I'd like to ask the city secretary, when we do this meeting,
Yes, sir.
If you could provide us with version or revision number 1 with line numbers, and so we can refer to things we want to change by line number, because it's very difficult to do it otherwise. And then every time we iterate, you can make another version and we can keep going until we get it done. It's just too hard to do if we're just looking at the ordinance and talking about it.
It's long, too.
If you could stick line numbers on every line, it would make it a lot easier. And I'd also respectfully like to ask that we not schedule this meeting until after December the 1st, because I'm not going to be available until after December 1st, and I really want to be a part of that meeting.
That works for me.
If you're going to be out the
Chance of
10th, do we want to do it in December or we want to do it?
All right, guys, let's get a date. We'll
Probably
need
going
a
to take
date.
several meetings. We're probably going to have to go through iterations.
Suggestion?
I'll be gone the weekend of the 10th.
I think it's going to be tough to get it done before the, to get
Before the
meetings in
holidays.
before the first of the year.
Yeah.
I think January, we can.
January sounds
January's
great.
going to be the best thing.
Okay.
I like that.
Should we come back with some dates and maybe at the next meeting?
Yeah.
Sounds perfect.
Yeah.
Please, we've got to get this done. So we'll come back with dates for the workshop on the council policies. Good. All right, now we will close for an executive session. We're closing at 7:03.
I think you have to read it.
Okay, you got to
The
read it.
city,
You have to read the item.
yeah, I am. The city council will meet in closed session under provisions of the Texas Government Code, Section 551.074, entitled Personnel Matters, to deliberate the appointment, employment, reassignment, duties, discipline, or dismissal of the city administrator. Okay? And this is the interim city administrator. So we'll be back 7:03.
Leave the live stream on.
So y'all can stand in front and make faces.
The short people don't know how hard it is to get up first off. We have more distance to stretch.
Did you get those job, that printout of the job requirement?
Yes, it's in there.
Got a couple I saw on
Whenever they get permits. Spread around. Yeah.
I thought you were bringing pizza.
Okay.
You got it up your shirt? I was gonna show you the cheap tax for the chance to I figured out what you guys do. Figure out.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Then I would go, yeah, easy. Yeah, he's trying to come, he wants to go so fast. He goes to the river. So we're kicking around some ideas. Thank you. We'll be very hard. How you doing no more PT? I'll do PT when I chase you.
About 6 years ago, out in the morning,
Yeah.
they redid River Bluff Street.
It's good.
Dug it all up, replaced 8 inches of base. Within about 6 months, just past Sandy Shearhart's house, which is the long scheme they frequent. A chunk about, like from that post over to here and along the curve, settled about that far. And then that was under warranty. So what they did with their warranty, they came and put like some seal coat on the crack where it separated them into one lot. But since then, over the last 3 or 4 years, I think the whole thing is like.
You're looking at $250,000. material, because it's literally like this deep.
But when Sandy was on council and talked about that, subdivision was built, he and several others that were making comments about that front of my house. When they were getting ready to pave it, the dump truck full of asphalt.
And just what's the goal with that, just make it shorter?
Paving a lot of the rain, and one of the things, he was just putting it down and then pull the truck
And
out.
what about the one with?
So that was the whole thing, was going down, not just river lines, the other streets. So she was wrong that down the street are all the sewer lines.
And you started working on that around the same time. It's not even
The water lines are all there.
on-call financial service.
So your subdivision, so it should have issues.
It was 74 when they built that subdivision.
The first houses were like 86,
Yeah,
87.
that was-
Yeah. Yeah.
But that is never gonna be solid there because of the leakage of the canal.
Is that?
They told them that the second they broke ground, says these streets will never be safe.
So we just need to concrete the canal.
That's being made this time. They won't do that.
And, you know, I've heard since I've been, well, the canal doesn't leak, they took care of it. Well, you look from Sammy's house
Yep.
to,
The cul-de-sac. Green?
Frank, anyway, on the end of the river bluff, when we had no rain for 2 months, the whole hillside is beautiful green, and that's the water system there.
The
But
only
yeah,
place that has no problems is the east side of Geneva because it starts to go back up.
the hill,
And they
yeah.
don't go up a hill, obviously.
Yeah.
But those houses will never have a problem. Every other house is foundation problems.
Yeah.
We looked at 4 different houses and we're looking for a house and every single one, they have to list their foundation problems and they are.
All of our tiles started
When
cracking.
I,
But they've known that from the beginning, like I said.
Yeah.
It's nothing new.
I know when I bought my house, the old guy, he actually was the original owner, had it built, he kept telling me, see the metal shed in the backyard? Yeah, that's all the pumps and stuff for my sprinkler system I put in because of the spring that's there. Well, you know, I watered for years, he had watered for 6 or 7 years at the time, using the spring. And one day I had a telescoping flagpole, and I laid it down to change the flag, just at the PVC, but when I went down here, water squirted out of that. And so I don't remember, the guy's name was Frank, I don't remember his last name, worked for Water Public Works, a big, tall, thin, older guy. And he checked it, and there was chlorine in it. Well, they figured it's gotta be a pipe leak right there when they dug up probably 10 or 12 feet of my front yard, which also makes no sense. The water line there is probably this deep in the ground. And dry as bone everywhere they dug. So, fill it back in. In December of 12, I come out one morning, my driveway's gushing, the vacant field's got a lake in it. And city comes, shuts off all the valves they're aware of, the water keeps going, doesn't slow down. Dig up my driveway, and then the top of the 8-inch line, there's a hole about the size of a baseball. It almost looks like you just drilled it with a circular saw. And as they start digging around right there in my driveway, there's a valve. They didn't know it existed. Now there's a valve off in it. They shut that off, get what the water stopped. Well, they fixed the leak. And in about 6 or 8 weeks, I had no more spring. Haven't had since.
That was the spring?
Yeah. Now,
Does
the
the
house
city
was built in
provide a
01.
spring?
Yeah, the city was built in 01, and this is the end of 12, so for at least 11 years. The spring was running. You know, and I asked the question, you know, if he's over there producing 100,000 gallons a day, and you're only billing people for 80,000 or whatever the number, where's the other going?
Yeah.
Well, it's probably going there. Well, since then, when the clay, which is about that thick there, started drying up, all the houses started moving. And there was one over there, just say, catty corner, about half a block in distance. It actually tilted 16 inches. Mine went down 6, like this. When it slab was where you could just
went together, built it.
And everybody else going all the way down to where River Bluff ends at the Geneva cul-de-sac and it drops off in the river, houses have had problems since then. And a lot of them have been anywhere from 20 to 90,000 or more to just fix the foundation problem, while the others break each inside and whatever else. But, yeah, I haven't had a spring. And so, yeah, and you start thinking of other places, there's leaks in the sewer lines, and when they smoke tested them, I don't know when it was early phase or it was a couple years before that, but everything seemed to be good with it. But I know about a year ago now, I had to have my sewer line, you know, from the back of my house, comes through the house, down my little property into the street. There were 4 breaks, 3 under the house, and one right before it went out on a curb. It was all, you know, like this, where things had shifted and twisted, so that had all been replaced. So, yeah, it's just the way the hillside is, you know. And, yeah, probably should have never been built on in the first place.
The only house up there that's not gonna shift is Kate's house next to mine. He put 6-foot pillars, you know, he did the trenches and deep pillars and everything. So he spent some money on his is gonna be solid for a while. And I've seen them build houses, they just go over and clear it, go gravel down and put concrete up.
On mine, the guy, the man who was the owner guy who built was an engineer, but, what's the concrete guy? Prado.
Oh,
Pardo. He's the one that built it, and I know when mine was moving, I went to talk to him, and he said, that shouldn't move at all. He said, he just kept calling it that old man. And the guy was, I mean, like 77 or something.
He did the same thing, huh?
On the east side of it, he said, there's piers that we put in there, concrete poured. He said, they're probably 10, 12 feet down. Well, that was fine. They didn't get through on the clay. It kind of helped keep it from breaking apart as it tilted. Yeah.
Oh, the spring didn't help.
And,
Not after it dried, you probably have cracks in your house of dry dirt now, enjoy.
well, still some of the dirt outside the house is shrunk over the last.
Are you good with that long? Yeah, it's gonna.
Oh, yeah. And, you know, you figure how much, if it's under, say, 60, 65 pounds of pressure, you got a hole about 2.5 inches out of an 8-inch water line, running for at least 11 years.
You're probably why the city's getting sued. Because remember they had all those water heaters popping in those areas because of high water pressure?
Oh,
They
yeah.
probably adjusted for your leak. You fixed their leak, and now your pressure's skyrocketed.
I've had 6 water leaks in my house since I've been there.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, because they have 110 PSI at the top, yeah. But yet they can't get water pressure to the hotel
Right.
or to the new.
I didn't even fix my ceiling in my garage because I had 3 of them in the same area. So I just left it, it's just open right now.
I had a couple of water leaks in, but when they repaired them, it was, they had copper pipe, and where, you know, they kind of a seam coming together, well, there was about this thickness of pipe in the outside wall, rather than that much, and you can see the groove going, and that's where every leak is, and that's where the groove.
That groove.
It's bad manufacturing, but, you know, to go deal with it, it's always on a hotline, it's never been a leak on a full water line. So
I don't know. I haven't paid attention to it.
well, mine, yeah.
We had 3 in the garage, 1 in the upstairs bathroom, 2 in the other upstairs bathroom, 1 downstairs in the other bathroom, and then 1 behind the refrigerator.
Behind the refrigerator, because that can go on for a long time before you realize that.
I think where there's an ice maker in my, I think it was an afterthought. Because I came home one day and there was a bubble of paint on the wall opposite the kitchen.
Oh,
And I mean, when they water anywhere, well, I shut off everything when, yeah. nothing that had the ceiling, there's nothing that coming out of the wall, there's nothing in there, there's, you know. And Virgil Youngman was who I was using, had him come and we turned the water back on, you could hear, you know, spraying up above. Well, he went through and got up in the attic, was nothing, you know, you could hear all the noise. And what we figured is that the water line comes on that end of my house in the bathroom, and that they went up from the cold water line there up through the wall, got into the attic, came over here, and then came down to the kitchen, even though from here to you is the sink and, you know, the water and all that kind of stuff. And the leak was just after the elbow turn and getting down in the wall. And, you know, that was the last one I had.
That's why I'm building, so I get a warranty.
It's true.
Yeah.
The house.
Nobody's used the house?
The house two up from us, Mike Schrader used to live there.
Yeah.
And they had to go completely redo his whole house and bring everything from the attic down. Because he had so many leaks. And I don't know how much he paid for that, but it probably wasn't cheap. Ran X pipe.
Yeah, there's nothing good about it, I'm sorry, it's just, like you said, should have never been built.
I met a guy up at the assisted living during the Veterans Day program. Before they ever opened, I was up there and I just told Claire Rose, I said, just keep this room over in this corner. You got a room up there. I'm gonna move up there, I can look over everything, and, you know, it's still empty, blah, 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 but anyway.
You know that assisted living should never been built, because that was a landfill at one point, that corner. And that whole hillside moves. For AT&T, over the past 10 years, we've always lost one fiber, like one fiber a year. Why is it breaking? Why is it breaking? The whole hillside is shifting because our fiber actually goes up the road behind the hillside, and then it cuts across at a 45-degree angle and goes to Scooter Mingle's property. And we kept on losing fibers, and finally we had no more spares. All right, let's just dig along Old Highway 90 and along 4516 and just bypass it. And sure enough, that fixed it. We got all our fibers back. But that hillside is slowly moving down. And so talking to Dad, he goes, no, when Montoya was there, that was all landfill, literally landfill. And they made it a point to, that land was never supposed to be built on, it was only supposed to be parking lot for hillside, for the hotel. I almost want to take a plumb and measure, like every 3 years or 2 years, and see if it's sliding, because Dad goes, no, that is gonna slide unless they put these 50 piers in there, it's gonna slide.
I know when I was looking at Appleton before I bought, I looked at one, it was brand new. It's the corner of Geneva and Washington. It's the green one that's right against the creek, but on the side of Washington. And it's garage, house, and in the back there's a little bit, you know, an L type thing when you walk back there. And right where the corner is, you can see there's been the stucco and the wall cut out in the patch. You come over here, here's the high window for the bathroom, here's another one, same way, right at the ground, another one. And you're looking around in the garage, the water heater's just inside the garage, there's another spot over there in the wall. And so I asked the realtor, I said, you know, this isn't right, the house hasn't been occupied, you know, been built, I don't know what it was, like a month and it was finished, something wrong. And I used to be an insurance adjuster, and it was like, you know, this lines up with water lines coming out of the bathroom, this is kind of where the water heater is, this is where the kitchen sink is. I don't know, I'll check it. Well, it was about 3 or 4 days, they called me and said, what you said, that used to be a dump also.
We've dumped stuff.
And it
I
was
remember
never
dumping
supposed to
stuff.
be built upon, but because they put enough dirt and kind of compacted it around, it meant that.
Well, that's the one on the left at the first stop sign.
Headed out.
If you're coming out of your house.
Yeah, you got the curb and shut
On the left,
Yeah, I heard that. I heard that before, that it was a dump.
And so I said, okay, scratch that off the list.
That was Roman Garza's old property. And we actually called him now because he fills that creek in, because I have concrete that I'm getting rid of. We asked him, hey, do you want to do more? Yeah, bring it in, how do you feel? And we still do it to this day, dump over there.
on a Mary Jane DeLong.
She owns all four of those.
I don't know when it was, you know, 8, 9 months ago, it was like, who can I talk to at the city about the, you know, the cliff behind my house is all washing away with all the rain dust. Well,
That's not our problem.
you know, you can talk to so-and-so at the city, but, you know, that's Mother Nature eroding stuff, but they talk to you, so she went and talked to Roy, or Roy came and talked to her, so, you know, nothing you can do about it.
No.
You spending money and build a concrete retaining wall for, you know, 15 feet high.
No budget for that.
60 feet long. Yeah, take that out of that 400,000 that you confiscated. Keep that out.
So I have somewhere.
It's behind your desk in that bucket.
Yeah, you know. Hey, look back there. I'm gonna look tomorrow.
Yeah. Well, she's got her, so to speak, baptism of fire.
That's right. Throw you right in the deep end.
I just thought before you walked in, she was taking pictures of like swearing in of things that were trying to sit, she was sitting here trying to sit here and get around all, you know, family. I said, Chris usually sits in the front and you get up, wander over there anywhere you want and take a picture. And she said, well, I didn't want to get in front of that TV and all this kind of stuff. I said, don't worry about it, just do it. Somebody, I said, I tried to teach you when you first started, but, you know, it's already late.
Yeah, I might have been talking to the computer. Because I couldn't watch the whole meeting, but I watched a bit and do something and watched a bit. And I might say, Allison, why can't I see you? You should be in the front row.
You were the one watching. The one person above me. If I'm not here, I'm usually watching it.
Yeah, what are you doing here tonight, you know?
I saw it was a 5 o'clock instead of 6. Oh, I can make this. And I'm supposed to be at the fire meeting at 7, so I'm not gonna make that.
Well, I know we're driving up this, because of Jackson Square, you know, all the cars were out here, and it was like, no place to park, and going in the back to park, and it was like, well, this is a new thing, 5 o'clock, everybody in town goes to it.
Well,
No,
It was just his
we know
family.
that.
Although the 5 o'clock is nice.
It is.
Here it is, it's
Yeah.
7:25 and they're on the last.
Well, they could have been adjourned already, but 15 or 20 minutes ago, if they would have.
Let Devin talk and quit trying to give him recommendations when it's not an agenda item to give him a recommendation.
That's some of the other stuff that.
That's all it's supposed to be. They're trying to give briefs like, point of order, I'm like, point of order, stick to the agenda. I was trying to make small talk with them just now, it's like, I can't believe you have to tell the council, what road you're gonna do. Your budget this money, so work within it. Don't come up here asking, hey, what road do you want? Like, no, we're gonna work on this, plain and simple. Because the same thing, in my opinion, that our mayor is complaining about micromanaging, well, she's doing right now. Because remember she asked last year about this, all the turnover in public works, the city and all that? It's because y'all kept demanding us. You have a budget, stay within it. Stay away from it. But no, they want to leave it. They're gonna. And that's just how I see it. That's just opinion, of course.
I think she would start riding around with John, just make sure.
I actually like that high density, the seal.
Yeah.
The bond, the high density bond.
That only lasts for what, like 5 years?
Yeah,
it's
not
a long term. It's a bandit, like you're saying.
And that's what
you're saying, was it's just gonna put a patch on, try to extend it a little bit longer. And if it's too far gone, it won't work.
And it's not asphalt, so you ain't gonna turn up like the chip seal stuff.
You got a lot of that, you know, chip seal gravel sitting over there by the cemetery. You guys ought to be out there, you know, spreading that on the road and just kind of getting some plain old, you know, roll-on seal that you get out there with the paddle.
It is a hot mix or something.
Yeah, if we had a hot mix,
Yeah.
that stuff over there is still stick. I can start ordering pallets of cold patch, you guys can take that. Start spreading
That's
it.
even worse.
I remember long before all of you were born, the town of Abilene made history. This was
When they first built it?
No, this was.
He's not that old.
Like in 1955, 6, 7, they were in Life magazine, that one of the first cities in the whole United States that they paved every street by pouring concrete.
Concrete?
Yep.
Wow.
Because it was gonna save them money of all this kind of
Oh,
stuff. You know,
Especially from
years and years and years and years. And,
Yeah.
you know, you can go up there and drive and you still have the concrete streets. A lot of them are still original. Some of it, you know, they're settled like where there was a section ended and it's rock that they can fix those. But, you know, back then, yeah, you could probably pay half of Castroville for $100,000, let's say. It's all relative
Yeah.
size, but yeah, it was like, we're gonna do that, we're not gonna be paying all this money every year to go fix potholes and all that kind of stuff. It's just do it.
Wow.
Forget about it.
And now we're talking about river in certain parts of Sharks, there's a high water table, just like y'all talking about. And the Sharks made them, the city made them concrete it because they know their roads are gonna, they're not gonna. So they have, made the developer pay for concrete roads instead of asphalt roads.
Now in Missouri, in Boonville, they had brick roads. And they still had that in the 80s when I moved out. What is the benefit of a brick road?
Well, cheap materials because they probably made them real close.
Right.
You know, one thing, but then just over time, they don't disintegrate and they wiggle a little bit, but they always go back to where they were and do another bit. In fact, when we went Boy Scout camping up to Possum Kingdom Lake this last year, we went through a town of Strawn, and it's south of I-20, maybe 30 miles up, you know, 50 miles past Mineral Wells or something. And the old part of the town still is all brick streets, and it's part of the farm road that goes up to
But
the
you also
area.
gotta remember, that's part of the hill country zone, that's all rock underneath the limestone.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
not dirt, it's gonna stay.
Yeah, and
That's-
this was a big coal
Yeah.
mining and oil town, boom town and all that other kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And all the houses are all this kind of an odd, almost a brownish colored brick rather than red or like, like they had this pinky red kind of color in the houses. I mean, some big houses, you think you're in King William, just you go up here. I mean, seriously, you're not like 6 feet of them right along the road, but those were all brick. And so it was all the,
Possum Kingdom used to be a nice lake.
so, it's still, well, at least when we were on.
Well, they
there.
had a algae bloom 10 or 15 years ago, and it killed all the fish. But we used to go there in the 80s, 84 to 91, I used to go to Possum
I
Kingdom.
think zebra mussels are in there now.
Is there?
They're starting to make their way south. It's only a matter of time before we get lake.
Canyon Lake's got a lot of them in it.
Uh-huh.
We were playing, not this weekend when we were up there, but back in the summer up there camping. Somebody picked up a rock about, this big, about so big.
Full of them.
The whole bottom was nothing but the mussels and everything under them was just mussels. And he started like, well, let's look around. Well, yeah, every rock you picked up, there were mussels all over it. So,
Yeah, my 62 glass trunk reformer transom broke in the middle of that lake, and it was sinking quick. And I was holding the engine in the water while my buddy was trying to get to shore.
Don't make it.
Yeah.
Well, he lived to tell the tale.
And I was thinking about the engine.
Hijack on the engine.
Sink it.
Yeah. I'm saying to expect that.
It had a 25 Johnson Seahorse, I think, on it. That one came by.
Very excited.
Yes.
All right.
And it is.
Yeah, I got this on right when I came on, and I was like, all right, cool, now there's more. And I was, oh no.
It's Tuesday.
I'm chomping at the bit.
we've solved all your city's problems.
We got it, we're done, we're good.
John's got,
I got lots to do.
between the Fuentes and the, we're driving,
Rented lips.
Guard's a good one, yeah, everything, you'll have all the counts figured out, no problem.
I know where all the dump sites are.
Yeah.
Oh, that's all.
It's interesting that there was more than one.
Well, it
Wasn't
wasn't
like that.
it wasn't a city, that
There's
was
three of
just.
us now. Because he
Well,
was
that's
the
what I'm
original
asking.
ordinance, making ordinances. He has
The
the
one on Washington was inside the city limits, that other one is
But was it the city dumping there, or was it just a dump for
I
people
think
to
just
dump?
people that dumped around.
Just people that just dump.
You know, because there's places, people just go dump their
You
stuff.
you dump it on the creek back there in the
Yeah.
Dirt, rocks, big rocks, old concrete slabs, because the main reason they wanted to dump it is because the washout from River Bluff. Before River Bluff was there, all that water would come down and wash it out, all that's filled in. Because that used to be wide, they're almost to Washington. Yeah.
I don't think people realize how much water comes down with heavy rain from the assisted living center just to get to River Bluff Street. There's a containment pond up there below the assisted living.
In 64, my dad, right there, Washington, Houston, and Geneva, he was the first house on the west side of Algiers. He was the first one to buy it. And because of him is why we have Jackson Street so effed up. Because all that water came right to his house. And so they said, oh, we can make a ditch right there along Alsace by Best.
Yeah.
And that's when they originally did that cut. But the first cut they did is they just took a grader. All right, we're gonna make Jackson a street now. If you look at Jackson from Highway 90, it does this. It actually, my neighbor, because I have a third lot from that, the fourth lot, which is.
Yeah, what do you do with that?
I'm hoping to start building sometime this week. But I got all my permits approved Friday, hopefully they're starting this week. But yeah, we're building.
I keep asking your dad was having over there.
Well, that property line is actually 2 feet in the road. And there's a big old dispute between lot number 4 and me about number 3, because they moved their property line over without surveying, and they just did it. And so the first surveyor comes and finds the pin, oh, there's the property line. Next surveyor, oh, there's your property line. So now everybody thinks that's the property line. It's like, no, I have 83 feet of frontage, I want my 83 feet. Go to the tax assessor office, yep, 83-166, so here's the 1964 plat. I go to the county, no, it's platted for 83-166. Of course, the neighbor don't want to hear it, the surveyor doesn't want to hear it because I'll prove him wrong. And I actually caught him a lot, actually, a very well-known survey. Him and I did this for about an hour on the phone, bitching about how he did it wrong. I did not something wrong, and then I threw it in his face, and look, if you move a property line on a frontage lot, by law, you're supposed to equal it throughout the whole block. So everybody has the same frontage. It's almost like, oh, you knew about that law? Yeah, I researched it because I want my property. And him and I got into it pretty good about that. And then another surveyor comes, like, and I asked him that same question. He goes, yeah, all right, go measure those 2 lots. Because these 2 lots are supposed to be exactly the same. I'm paying you to do this now, do it. And he goes back to a 1970 recorded survey. Oh, this is it. Well, here's a 64 survey, not a plat, a survey. Oh, you got that? He goes, yeah, I have every survey this lot's ever had. And I'm kind of going to argue my neighbor now because he's encroaching 6 feet into my property, but we'll cross that path when we get there. He knows about it. He's new there, so he's like, work with me and I'll work with these. All right. But no, I'm hoping they start next week, or what it is. But yeah, I'm ready.
So somebody down in B County, and when we moved there, I was in 4th grade, so it's been 100 years ago. And the 2 neighbors, it was like they had field talking about it, where several people got killed over where pieces met on the creek. And the creek ran this way and the property lines go this way. So as the creek eroded, it kept cutting into the hill over there. And so, my land got longer and longer and longer over here. And it was about, depending on the story, like 5 acres to 7 acres in distance. Well, since I've owned it, now with back out of the 4 or 5 years, I've owned it since like in the mid-60s, but back 5, 6, 7 years ago, a bunch of heavy rain down there, and it meandering stream that cut probably 4 or 5 feet out of the bluff on that side, which is about 9 to 10 feet high. And so if you're that property owner, you put your fence like this, so you have a fence. deep. And now that would be 7, 8 feet from the bluff.
Right. In the water.
Yeah, so I thought about getting like a piece of, I don't know, 8-inch casing and then somebody drill a good hole, cement it in there and make that the corner.
But with that.
But from there to where the bluff is now, you've got to put your fence, and you have to compact dirt and, get a bunch of cement bags or something, and then let it over time become a cement wall to keep it, but that creek over the years, obviously, it wiggle all over the place. You're not gonna really stop it, but, like you said, to sell it today, it's gonna be kind of the same thing, because you want your land back that you bought, and I don't need it and want it, because I gotta extend the fence, and whoever can have it is gonna buy it from me.
Absolutely. At a bargain, because, there's all this disconnect.
But, yeah, they did shoot and kill a couple of each other.
That's crazy.
Back in the late 20s. So,
The moonshiners.
kind of felt like it.
Yeah, if you ever want to know any history or dead people in it, especially my dad, he knows the whole history of this town. There's days I just want to hit record and just listen to the stories he has, especially about the Boteos in Cross Hill, because Boteos own everything from the cemetery to the river. And he has stories of how they just basically took the land from them because, they're poor Mexicans and here comes rich white people. Hate saying that, but it's true. They just, nope, this is my lot, and just basically take it from them. And he has those type of stories and what houses should be built, shouldn't be built, everything.
He was one of the first persons I met back the day I was unloading my furniture.
Yeah, did you now?
Because some wouldn't fit in the house the way the house is built, and my piece of furniture was built, it would go through some bins. So Tim Persine, the realtor, and he said, go over there and find Felix, he's probably his shop. Well, it was after there'd been a tornado at Eagle Pass, and he was collecting furniture and anything all down there. I mean, this was like, not getting long after the tornado, and I said, here, you can just have this if you want to.
Yeah.
Hey, it's going to Eagle Pass.
Yeah, every time they say garage sale or nuisance or was it accumulation in an ordinance, I always feel one or two councilmen looking at me. Because we've gotten those and we just won a 5-year battle with the city on accumulation. We just, literally last month, we came into court, 5 years old. We cleaned it up within the 10-day grace period they gave us. But 5 years they're fighting us, and finally just said, you been here how long? And we showed them pictures from 01, 02, and 03. So look, this box truck is still here, this truck is still on stilts, and we just come with all these pictures. All right, let's dismiss it.
Yeah.
And of course, but you won't say nothing about Rainbow Theater because of who owns Rainbow Theater, but all the accumulation on public right of way, you won't tell them to clean it, will you? And so we start throwing all this stuff back at them, and it's not that we don't want to clean, because we do, but if you're gonna do it to us, do it to everybody. And when we said,
I can chip off the old block.
like I said, I have the original ordinances from the city. We went through and I've read those word for word. And going to the media code online, yeah. And I sat in every, from 01 to 05, I was in every city council meeting.
How come you're not sitting?
That's what I wanted myself. And when they didn't allow me to be on P&Z, I was kind of pissed because I thought I had backing from one of the councilmen up there, but he shot me down. Whatever.
He made my wife join the city.
You guys stuck on parks.
Yeah, actually, I like it there because Devin fills my ear in a lot of stuff, and Greg helps a lot too.
Yeah.
Greg tells me a lot. And I like it actually.
You're gonna put that on front of your building when you take check over there.
Right now, I want to retire. I want to build my house and build more cheese.
Well,
But I own.
no, but it may be.
But I don't have all property on Dyers.
All the pieces, but just to cover.
Oh, I've never seen one of these.
But they unscript.
You see these?
And these are a different snowflake than the first ones they bought, which were those, they look like a flat
When
snowflake.
the city got rid
Okay,
of
that's why this is, I was
Yeah.
thinking that.
the city.
So all you need to do is just put colored bulbs in there and it'd
We
be fine.
had stars, trees, angels, and they're, what's called?
So,
They're every bit of this tall. And they were every bit of this wide. And they hung up the same base.
Oh, yeah.
And it was wrapped in that cellophane, like the plastic garland, not the real cheap stuff. It was like about an inch wide, so it's real sparkly during the day, and at night, the light reflect off it. I guess, I don't know. Well, that was on every pole within Castroville. And we had, like I said, I think we had like 2 Christmas trees, 2 angels, and 2 snowflakes. And over the year, we just threw them away. But we had them. And like I said, they're every bit of 7 feet, 8 feet tall. You can see it.
Yeah.
Can't see it. When it looks that big, when you're driving down the road. And this whole Christmas card thing, you don't realize, in Honda, the railroad owns to the curb, not the highway. The railroad owns to the curb. The railroad allows them to put those cards along, I mean, they don't have a spot like that along.
Well, that's what I was telling. The used car lot and that one field is the only 2 places in town that's open where they could put something like that.
But that's not within the city limits, I guarantee you Jimmy won't allow it.
Yeah, but yeah.
He won't allow it because he sells his crap. And it's not city
It's not-
mandated, it's not city
Well,
government.
they have to ask permission.
Then he won't do
But other than that, any
it.
business,
Exactly. He is a businessman.
any business in town, that you can't put them out front because they mess up their parking lots, they won't be able to park.
yeah, or they even has a
Yeah, there's no place that else will do that, it's wishful thinking.
Yeah,
Property line.
unless they did it at the square. They could do it at the square and set them all out there.
What's fair?
The square.
Where at? Inside the grass area?
And it'd just be people could go view them, it wouldn't be people driving by like they want.
The only time you'll have people seeing that is during market show days, November,
Yeah.
December, and then old fashioned Christmas, of course. But then you're gonna have.
They'd be in the way.
Exactly. And me being on the Parks and Rec board, I would recommend it for that reason.
But other than that,
He's
there's no place.
supposed to make it
Everything, anything
No,
nice.
I know, but if you can do it, do it right.
He doesn't want any happiness, we're gonna give you all the lights, you're gonna go
I
get them
want
and put
the
them up.
old ornaments that we had on the light poles, the tall 7, 8-foot ones. We had the Christmas tree, a star, and an angel.
See, that's the ones I was thinking.
Where they at?
We used to have 4 of them because the city got rid of them because they're so old and dilapidated and we needed to get rid of them.
Yeah.
But yeah, they were every bit of 7 foot, 8 foot tall, about 4 foot wide. Bruce put them up, I forget. the
How long ago was this?
Probably, last time I saw it, probably late 90s, early 2000s. Probably late
Before I
90s.
moved here.
And they were beautiful. I mean, you saw them. They did.
Well, and the other snowflakes were about this big, they actually looked like a snowflake, like flat one.
Yeah.
And they had the solar lights in them, but they were, didn't look, you could hardly ever see them, but they spent hot funds for those when Gary Carter was the president of the chamber and owned the Castroville Cafe. And there were maybe, I don't know, 20 of them or something, where they would buy with the funds. And they were up, I don't know, 5 years. Something like that. And then they just faded out so bad you couldn't see them, but Public Works had to go and put them up every, Christmas, plug them in, take it back down, even though they were kind of solar light. They had to keep them charged enough because they were dim. So everybody complained from day one that they were so small you couldn't see them, and they were like wasting money doing all that.
They were small.
Yeah, and it was like $6,000 or $7,000, I mean, they spent buying those, because the first year anything like that came out that you could get.
Oh, yeah.
It was like,
Those ones you were talking about, when they were talking about with Kelly, where are those at?
you know where Dan's Meat Market is, on the Houston Square on this corner.
Oh, yes.
The bank is there, Caddy Corner is at Dan's Meat Market.
Okay.
It's a vacant building on the ground floor,
Okay.
that used to be a meat market.
Okay.
And Tim Kelly owns that building. That's linear this way, and then there's a white, one-story, two-story.
The old bulletin.
He owns that building also, well,
I remember
back
going in there and
meat
the lady,
market.
mine
What was all the
she was,
butchery, I mean, up until a couple of years ago, there
the
was all the cattle
caption,
pens there.
she placed everything on this little rack, and she still had the engineers, the big ass engineer
Yeah,
table.
they're.
And she had all the cutouts, taping it all, redoing it.
Yeah,
I was probably small, but I can remember going in there and seeing all these clippings and letters.
Oh, yeah.
I'd say Magnolia Filling Station needed
Well, that was the
a
other
60
thing.
foot one on this side and 30 feet on this side. Well,
Although it cracks me up.
then the building she's in,
Where we're at now.
you know, needed whatever,
We've
60
been there
feet this
before.
way, 20 this way, 20 that way or something.
Almost 11
They,
years.
no, they were all put on, so they,
Still come in.
we bought different sizes, like 30 feet, 60 feet and all kind of stuff. And then once
This
they
is
were
the
up,
fourth
the idea
office,
was,
but the news bulletin
when you
has
took them
since
down, you're gonna bundle them and mark them so you know it's Magnolia, you know it's a newspaper, you know it
And
well.
then they'll say, why can't
The
it
guy
all the
from
time?
Comzoo,
I just came in the other
Did
day.
you get that
and I went to
we
the
got
square,
we
and
did
you guys
coffee
had just moved out the
books, like
entire
you put in
thing.
the, kitchen cabinet.
Like
And
years
he's,
ago.
when we put them up, he screwed all those in, I mean, the whole thing,
That's always
we put them in.
Yeah, I imagine.
Nailed a few little things in, well, then when we
But
came to
nobody
take
comes
them
in
down,
anymore.
they just started taking them down and
Goes in.
we got, bucket that goes in fully, take them down, give it to somebody.
You know, I can remember.
And when
being
maybe
in
three,
that-
four
that
buildings
original building.
in a pile, you just took them to the bigger bundle, put them in the back of your pickup and drove over there.
They
Well,
don't
no,
use it.
Then later,
That's
I mean, like, within the next few weeks, we went and we bought some of these great big plastic tubs that are about like this. And just, if there was a bundle here, they fit in this tub, you just dump them in there to keep them off of the moist floor and some of that kind of stuff. And so there's probably, I don't know, 15, 17 of those big plastic tubs full of them.
The color?
They're all white.
All right.
Yeah. All
Very
LED.
pretty.
And then like every tree in September Square was wrapped, not just the trunk, I mean, up like 12, 15 feet, and out the limbs. And he, out of his own pocket, a lot of it, he paid to get tree trimmers to come in there to do it, and then actually
Yeah,
climb the tree and do all the wrapping.
Across the street.
Well, yeah.
But it
But I
was
mean,
beautiful.
It did, you're right.
and some of his own property, he did that too, there, but what's now Trinity parking lot and all that kind of stuff, as well as wrapping them over in Houston Square. And, you know, when we started, it was, this money was given, GM gave all the San Antonio Chevy dealers each $10,000 that had to be spent on something that didn't promote the dealership, it promoted the San Antonio Chevy area dealers. And each one of them got $10,000, but you could spend it on something to make your community, you know, happy, you feel lucky better and all that kind of stuff. So a lot of it went to Johnny Rodriguez, who was the concert. But then it was like, okay, let's get more lights and light everything. And so we started researching, you know, Lowe's and Home Depot and everywhere else on what was the best deal. Well, we found some that, you know, they were having a special, like October 1st, you could buy everything now. What was a normal $29.95 strand was $14.95. So we bought that and using economic development, tax ID number, we didn't have to pay taxes on them, you know, I mean, all this kind of stuff. But it ended up with the lights alone, it was like $3,400 worth of stuff. Because we ended up, there was I remember the 6,600 feet of lights that we bought.
Do you remember who did the lighting contest? Was that the Garden Club? I think it was the Garden Club that
That's what they were talking about.
right, that's, I wanted to say something, but we're not supposed to interject, but I was, because the only reason I know is Mom won like Castroville with all her decorations over there.
And now basically the garden club is Priscilla.
Disbanded. Oh, yeah.
And, Kears kind of helps still, like, he'll go out along the bridge if there's grass and leaves, you know, he'll, chop some of it, pull it up, and go to the
So is the retired Marine guy?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I haven't seen him out there in a while.
But
I haven't seen him in a while.
he's around chopping stuff. But, and he took care of like all the little oddball corners.
Yeah, he goes in through that and pulling off the stop sign out.
Long real estate where those little goofy triangles are, that weird intersections, I think that was created when they put the house in there, but anyway, yeah, you go along the way.
I'm surprised they left those angles
there's nothing you can do about it, but it's just
Yeah.
weird.
It is. There's some weird.
Still think they need to put a light on 90 to let the fire department and the ambulance out of there. I saw that today. I was sitting in True Value and the ambulance is trying to get out, there's cars just driving right in front of them.
Ambulance drivers are idiots because we keep telling them to go west before they go south, and they want to go right down Aiken. They will never get out there.
Is that
because
McDonald's?
line intersection.
Yeah.
So at the fire department, we're making everybody go out Mexico or go to the light for that reason because we got that policy.
If they had a light, but you don't need it, you can make it go somewhere else.
Oh, yoy, yoy. Okay. Still on the road.
Made this thing just too low, so.
Oh yeah, I saw the bar movie, so once I saw that, I read it.
Okay, we are going to reconvene.
Got to turn it back on first.
I know. All right, we're going to reconvene at 7:40.
Thank you.
7:53.
7:53. So, we are reconvening an open session, and now we will consider possible action or directions on items legally discussed in executive session. Do I have a motion?
Madam Mayor, I would like to make a motion that we move to raise the interim city administrator's pay to $110,000 per year, effective December 14th, 2019, and require a mid-December performance review.
Second.
And we have a second from Councilman Carey. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, we're at the end. Reports from council board liaisons. Councilman Martinez, anything?
No.
Councilman Carey?
The Zoning Board of Adjustments has not needed to have a meeting.
Okay. Councilman Byers?
Nothing on my end. Our next meeting is tomorrow.
Okay. Councilman Byers?
I have one report. The Library Advisory Board, for the second consecutive meeting, did not have a quorum. And we definitely need to move on the action. The city secretary has a nominee for another member, and we're going to act on it at the next council meeting.
Okay. Makes sense. All right. Agenda items. Councilman Dyer?
No, thanks, I have none.
Councilman Schiffman?
None at this time, no.
Councilman Byers?
Not at this time.
Carey and Councilwoman Martinez? Okay. All right.
I
Do I have a
move-
motion?
I move we adjourn.
I move.
I second it.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Thank you, guys. We got a lot done. And it was a long one.
I'll go 7:54.
So we are, 7:54 sounds good? Is it 7:54?
Yes, ma'am. By my phone. Thank all of y'all.
A lot of work y'all did.